at this very moment. We got 15 minutes before the cars roll, so stay cool. It's going to be all right. What's going to happen here is the first initial practice session for the Bud Shootout cars, which of course have all tested. That's not an issue, but they're going to be running 45 minutes in the first session up through 5 o'clock, and then they'll be back for that happy hour session, which will be a full hour later on, and that will be live, complete with commentary from the booth right here on Speed. The issue in Daytona's 10-day-long run-up to the 500 is always about focus. If you're an ARCA driver, the focus is tomorrow's race live on Speed. If you're a truck racer, the focus is the Friday night truck race live on Speed. If you're a Busch driver, it's the Saturday race. But for the 43 drivers who will ultimately make the Daytona 500, everything that you do down here has to focus on the one goal, to be the one driver, the one team that drives into victory lane next Sunday night as winner of the Daytona 500. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be back with more live from Daytona. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Daytona, where Jamie McMurray was playing golf for charity earlier this morning. Elliott Sadler signs an autograph. Tony Stewart in a playful mood. Dale Jarrett focused and ready to go. And why not? This is Daytona. This is the start of the season. Jeff Burton's ready to get with it, and so are we. Sorry for the little technical glitch, but now we're with you to look at some of these big stories, like Dale Earnhardt Jr. wanting an ownership stake in the team he drives for. Like Toyota, the first foreign nameplate in NASCAR since 1963. How will they do? And Jimmy Johnson coming off his Nextel Cup championship season. What's ahead for the number 48 team? Let's flesh those stories out down in the garage area, beginning with the editor of Speedway Illustrated, Dick Berggren.
And I'm with Jimmy Johnson's car, and Jimmy has been here as well, getting ready to go this afternoon. He, 2 years ago, won the Budweiser Shootout here at Daytona. Last year, he did even better, winning the Daytona 500 and following that up with an Nextel Cup championship. He's got a lot of work to do this afternoon and this evening, however, in the 2 practice sessions we have for shootout cars. This particular car that he's going to run has had a bit of a push during practice. They're going to try to get that out. They're going to try to figure out the fuel mileage, because it's possible that somebody just might be able to make the 50-lap second segment of the shootout tomorrow night without a pit stop. Can they do it? And they've got to get this car more comfortable for Johnson. So a lot of work to go. Let's move to Matt Yoakum.
Well, Dick, 12 and a half months ago, Toyota announced their intention of entering NASCAR Nextel Cup Series racing. That goal has been achieved. Now the orientation period is over. It's time for real racing. And when you look at 3-time Daytona 500 and 3-time Budweiser Shootout winner Dale Jarrett climbing into his car, this team has a lot going in front of them. Now, yes, they are on the pole for the Budweiser Shootout on Saturday night, but because they're a brand new race team, they are in the back. And I'm not talking the back of the garage. They are outside the garage, away from their competitors in the overflow lot with 3 other teams as well as 3 NASCAR vendors. This team, like so many others, new storylines for 2007, and this is a ritual that you see so many times in NASCAR. New teams starting in the back. And also, this is a great new headline that we'll be following not only during Speed Weeks 2007, but the entire season. Now to Chris Devoda.
When it comes to Dale Earnhardt Jr., whether he's talking about the stock market or, well, the grocery market, everybody listens. But when that topic has to do with whether his new address will match his last name, the motorsports world comes to a halt, as it did on Thursday down here in Daytona when Dale Earnhardt Jr. said he will not re-sign with his team next year unless he is made a majority owner. Now, is that new news? Well, Jr. has always expressed his interest in owning part of the team, but now there's a number attached to it, 51%. That's what it'll take to put Dale Jr. back behind the wheel of the Budweiser Chevrolet next year. What does it mean for Daytona? Really nothing. This guy is used to dealing with distraction. He's NASCAR's most popular driver. The team says they're used to dealing with it as well. As crew chief Tony Uri Jr. just told me today that they have a meeting with Dale Jr. They said, "You are our guy for this year. That's all we care about."
Thanks, Krista, and welcome to our Fox coverage team. Cars are coming on track. Finally. Every October, every November. Oh, the season's so long. Oh, I can't wait for the off season. I got all these things to do. And then the 1st of February, Daryl, Larry, and Mike all go, is it time yet? Is it time to go racing? Because we're ready, and we got so many stories and so many things to talk about.
Yeah, we always wonder, well, gosh, what are we going to talk about this year? You know, nothing's really changed. Everything changes from one season to the next. It's only 90 days roughly, but here we are with a brand new season. Beautiful weather, folks. I'm sorry back home. I know it's cold. I know it's windy. I know it might even be snowing. 75 here and sunny. We got sunshine on our shoulders. I tell you what else we got. We got a lot of great storylines to follow. One is at Toyota, Larry, and I believe that tomorrow night, a lot of those questions that these guys down here have been asking all winter long, how good are they going to be? We're going to find out, because we got one of the best drivers in the sport starting on the pole in the Budweiser Shootout tomorrow night in the Toyota Camry. So we'll find out how good they are tomorrow night, and all the fears and all the worries, we'll see if it were worthwhile or not.
Yeah, I think everyone's asking the question about how Toyota's going to be. But you know what? Let's take the other three manufacturers. They want some answers to some questions, too. Dodge, only one of their race teams won races last year. Casey Kane, they have the new nose, supposed to have the balance, the way that race car drives. Ford, a weak season last year. Only two of their teams won races. They want to see if they're better in 2007. And what Chevrolet wants to find out, are we just as good as we were last year? Remember, when you look at the Budweiser Shootout, Chevrolet, they've won over half of those races since we started racing in 1979, and I think some of these answers will start coming to surface even in these practice sessions.
Well, let's have a look at the starting lineup for the Budweiser Shootout that you will see on Fox Saturday evening in prime time. They drew for positions live on Speed. DJ on the pole, where the race has been won from 3 times. Scott Riggs outside pole has been won there once. You have to go back to Kyle Busch to find the first Chevrolet in the field. Kenny Schrader's been running this race forever. Jimmy Johnson, Ryan Newman, Mark Martin, the top 10, but only 3 times in the last 10 years has this race been won from a top 10 spot, so the winner might come from back here.
Well, if you just look at Dale Jr., I mean, he has the worst starting average of anybody in the field, but he has the best average finish of anybody in the field, too.
And there is the defending champion of the Budweiser Shootout, who started where?
15th. Dead last this year, though.
Doesn't matter where you start. Speed Channel's coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of NASCAR and proud sponsor of Dale Jr. and the number 8 car. By Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. And by Toyota, moving forward. Daryl was not kidding. It broke through the 70s today. Moderate humidity, nice light breeze, and a lot of sun.
And the one thing that's nice, something we always fight here, we don't have a lot of right now. We don't have a lot of wind right now. That's something we normally always fight here.
The Budweiser Shootout has gone through several formats since it began as the Busch Clash some 27 years ago. 2 segments of 20 laps, a 10-minute pit stop, 50 laps in the final segment. Last year's Budweiser pole winners and former Budweiser Shootout winners. 21 drivers who are eligible have elected to compete this year. And we're about to see how they fare in practice. There's the defending champ of the race, Denny Hamlin, as we go downstairs to Dick Berggren,
who won as a rookie, and this is his garage stall. And just as he was climbing into that car, Mike, I asked him what he wanted to accomplish in this practice session. He looked at me, smiled, and he said, figure out how to pass about 20 cars, because tomorrow night he is going to start dead last in 21st spot. Race has been won from as far back as 19th. Matt?
Dick, the Sed heads can celebrate. Boris Sed's legendary fan club can celebrate because he's here in Daytona not only for the Budweiser Shootout, but he's also here to qualify for the Daytona 500 next weekend. Now, the big thing about Boris, he's down here with the proper package. He's got a Roush Yates engine package, which has always been successful in plate racing. He's got a great crew chief that's won here before, Frankie Stoddard, Daytona winner. He's got all the makings of having a successful Speed Weeks. Remember, this team is running on a limited schedule. At this juncture, they're going to run 7 times in 2007. To Chris Devoda.
Everything about Daytona Speed Weeks is big. This practice marks the first time the cars have been on the track since testing down here in Daytona. It certainly will not be the last. Taking a look at the tires, what these teams have to go through to get ready for all these practices, qualifyings, the duels, of course the races. 26 sets of tires. That's what a lot of teams are going to have prepared for the week. 6 alone just for the Bud Shootout, another 10 to get them through duels, and then another 10 for the weekend's races. Talk about big. Ray Evernham walked by his teams as tire specialist and said, "You guys are killing me with these tire bills," but of course they want nothing but the best. Ray Evernham, remember, has 3 cars, all 3 of them, in this shootout.
But Krista, I think the tire is going to be a big story here. You heard Dick Berggren talk about these guys seeing if they could go 50 laps on fuel. We have a bigger fuel cell here than we did a year ago. We're holding about 5 to 5.5 gallons more, and because of that reason, the team's being able to run about 10 or 12 more laps. Goodyear toughened up the right side tire, which makes that tire slide a whole lot more across the racetrack, and I think that's one reason when the caution comes, I think you're going to see a lot of guys hitting pit road for tires.
Yeah, the tires don't wear out. They just get hot. They just kind of glaze over, and they don't have the grip that you'd like to have. You got to come in and get tires, or you can't run around here wide open. The guy that can run wide open is going to win this thing.
The track is open for practice, and Mark Martin, who traditionally is the first car out of the Cup garage, yet again holds that distinction. But it is a very different looking car for Mark Martin. It's the first time in more than 2 decades that he's on a Nextel Cup track and not in a Jack Roush Ford.
I believe if you look at the combination, a Hendrick horsepower under the hood and this car, and Mark Martin, he's as good as anybody at Daytona. I wouldn't bet against him.
And Mike, you mentioned the rules. We have 15 of last year's Bud Pole winners in the race. 6 of the guys, include Mark Martin, are in it because they have won the race before.
Right behind Martin, Brian Vickers, as there's Dale Jr. side by side with the 19 of Elliott Sadler. Jeff Burton and that familiar 31.
Always amazes me, Larry. We used to go out and we used to say, now warm everything up, warm the gear up, you know, get the oil warm, and then we'll go fast. These guys come out of the garage, hammer down.
But just remember, Darrell, with the carburetor restrictor plate, it's a little quicker with them being in the draft, but with that carburetor restrictor plate, it takes well over a full lap around this 2.5-mile racetrack to get totally up to speed.
Just like we'll see tomorrow night, you see 2 pretty distinctive lines. You got a low line down there on the bottom by the yellow line. That's your best friend, in my opinion. And you got that outside line that has been known to work pretty well here, passing guys up on that high side.
Now, no Toyotas won Bud Poles last year. None of them even raced last year. But the invitation to compete in the Budweiser Shootout goes to the driver. And it does not matter what make of car he is in this year.
I'll tell you right now, the 083 car there, the Red Bull car, is sucking them right up there on the outside.
And that's Brian Vickers, of course, set on a pole driving the 25 car for Hendrick Motorsports last year. There you see Brian in the 83 car, Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car behind him. And we know what we normally see Dale Earnhardt Jr. do in a practice session like this. He'll almost kind of start at the back of the pack and see if he can work his way up through the pack and get to the front.
He's been first or second in 5 of the last 6 Budweiser shootouts he's been in. That's a phenomenal record. His average finish in the shootout, all 7 he's been in, is like a 7th place.
See Kevin Harvick in the 29 car, new sponsor on that car, up on the high side. Looks like he's going to fall in behind Tony Stewart in the 20 car. He follows that same strategy a lot, too, to see if he can work his way up through the pack.
Now, it wouldn't surprise me to see these guys run a few laps here, and we're going to get a debris caution and bring them in and say, boys, you need to settle it down a little bit, because everybody is up on the chip right now, pretty excited. Out there, look pretty aggressive to be first few laps around the racetrack.
Well, the fans are antsy. We're antsy. Those drivers are antsy, too.
I already see a little bump drafting going on. We only had 2 laps.
David Gilliland in the 38, Kyle Busch in the 5.
Now, bump drafting is it's okay when you're going in a straight line, but what you don't want to do is give somebody a little shot in the middle of the corner or even through the trial wheel. It's a little bit dangerous. This is only 18 degrees of banking through this trial wheel, and you're running 195 miles an hour through here.
Now, not everyone is out on the track for these first few minutes of practice. Krista?
Yeah, Jeff Gordon back in the garage. It's a radio problem. They're having trouble communicating. It seems like Jeff can hear his crew chief, Steve Letarte, okay, but Steve cannot hear Jeff. So they're up under the hood checking all the wiring on the car. A communication problem. They're going to go ahead and take advantage, take a look at everything while they're inside. Jeff Gordon, of course, won the Bud Shootout in 1994 and 1997. In 97, he also won the Daytona 500. So you can bet he wants to get out there as quickly as possible.
And Krista and guys, I had an interesting conversation with his crew chief, Steve Letarte, this morning. He said normally we bring our third best race car for the Bud Shootout. We have our best car for the 500, and we want our second best car as a backup. But he said every year we do that, we walk around the garage on Saturday of the Budweiser Shootout and go, I can't believe we don't have a better car. They decided to bring their second best car, which is their backup 500 car for this Bud Shootout.
It's going to take Richard Childress Racing fans a while to get used to the shell and Pennzoil colors for Kevin Harvick. It's the first time in a couple of decades that Childress's car has not looked like the one that carried Dale Earnhardt to so many championships. This February, pride, passion, adrenaline, Pinks. Speed's Hit Series is back and the excitement reaches its peak on the quarter mile and in the negotiation pit. Lose the race, lose your ride. Season 4 premieres February 21st, 9 p.m. Eastern on Speed.
Boy, Larry, look at that 3-car setting in victory circle, which he did 6 times in the Bud Shootout. Closest guy to him, I think, is Jarrett. He won it 3 times. But that's where that car ended up most every time it came to Daytona. Sometime during Speed Week. Maybe it was a qualifying race. Maybe it was a Bud Shootout. One time it was the Daytona 500.
The Dale and Dale Show. 9 wins between Earnhardt and Jarrett. A man whose legend still looms very large over this and every other speedway in NASCAR.
And think about it, he only run the Bud Shootout 12 times. We go through a year, and Earnhardt was not a great qualifier. And so we always hoped he didn't win a pole, because we knew if he won a pole, he'd win the Bud Shootout.
And speaking of the Dale and Dale Show, 4 times those 2 drivers have won this race from the final starting spot.
And I think what really promotes that now, Mike, is it's a long race. We used to only race 25 laps in the Budweiser Shootout. Now it's 70 laps.
Note there's a Dale Jr. in there too.
Oh, yeah.
2 for Dale, 1 for Jarrett, and 1 for Jr.
And that's how Dale Earnhardt Jr. is in this field, because he actually didn't sit on a Bud pole in 2006.
And we see as the 2 buddies working together there. They work very well together. Tony Stewart in the 20 Home Depot car. He and Dale Jr. have hooked up pretty well here the last few times we've been down here. And there's the guy that I like his average finish so far.
1.
That's right.
Denny Hamlin in the FedEx 11. I wonder how much we'll see, as we saw right there, drivers in cars of the same make wanting to link up, other than just the co-opetition you talk about, where you just find anybody who's fast to draft with. I wonder how many of the manufacturers have the word out that you need to help your real friends and not just the ones you find from time to time.
I don't think we'll see any of that in the Bud Shootout. Now, the Daytona 500, that might be a different story, where you have a strategy. You have no strategy here. This is all about whether you can run 50 laps on a tank or fuel or not, in my opinion.
Well, and it also depends on how your teammate or another manufacturer that works with you, how his car is working. We've talked about handling. If he has to start getting out of the throttle and you don't, there's no way he can help you anymore.
That piece of plastic looks like they hit going down the back there off of turn 2. More than likely, that's a tear off of somebody's windshield. Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, coming back on track, Elliott Sadler and Ray Evernham's Dodge. Let's go to his garage and Matt.
Mike, like so many other teams, this is a huge shakedown session for the Dodge boys in the 19 and Elliott Sadler. Now, Sadler was complaining over his initial run. The car just didn't have the side bite that he experienced here during testing. But you hear that so many times. After the Rolex 24, the track is so different. It's just not the same track as testing. They trimmed away a little bit of the front valence. They made a shock adjustment. They pulled a spring rubber. A lot of small, minor adjustments according to game plan, so that way they don't get themselves out of their box so early in this session. But they are pretty pleased with how they've come back to the beach from their initial test session here in January. Mike?
Thanks, Matt.
But Larry, how many times have we come down here, tested, been love the car, come back for the race? What did you do to my car? And this thing has been oiled down for 24 hours by another race. And now you come back here and the setup, the shocks, you got to make some adjustments for the track conditions.
And what Matt's talking about that Elliott described, when you drive off in the corner, you want to feel like that car is kind of digging down in the racetrack and making a transition from left to right, and his car just doesn't have that real true feel right now.
Speed's coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. Boy, that's a great sound. I missed that.
It is. But what I'm seeing is our little practice field, it's thinning out just a little bit here. I think most of the guys, after maybe about a 10 or 12 lap run, which is a pretty good amount of laps on your tires and on the car, back to the garage area for adjustments. You see Denny Hamlin here, the winner from last year's shootout, in there to the attention of Mike Ford and his group with some adjustments on that 11 car.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see much change in weather. And, of course, that's not going to really be that big a deal because we're going to run this thing at night. So I don't know. I guess I'd be out there just trying to get comfortable. I'd be working on my window net, maybe work on my seat, maybe work on my pedals.
Fuel mileage.
Yeah, and I've already got that handled. You know, when you said Jarrett was out there in the lot outside the garage there, I thought they'd never put me and Hammond out there like that. They had to keep an eye on us. That's a great place to have your garage, outside, away from everybody.
Jeff Gordon back on track, a two-time winner of the Budweiser Shootout. Krista?
Yeah, if I heard you guys correctly, you were talking something about how communication is key. Well, it's so key for the 2014. They actually lost about 10 minutes of this Bud Shootout practice trying to get fixed with the radio. Communication was poor. They checked under the dash. Turns out it just wasn't plugged in correctly. Jeff was saying he could hear him fine in the garage, but when they fired the engine and went out on the track, they couldn't hear it. They just did a radio check. Jeff was able to give him all his temperature readings, and they heard it just fine. And let's go down to Dick Berggren.
And I'm with Mark Martin's car. And if you want to swing your camera over here, I can show you what they've been doing. This is the strap that was used to hold the exhaust system in the car. As you can see, it was dragging along the racetrack. So they've pulled it out, put another strap underneath it, and they are also changing the camber on the front end of the car to try to make it handle it a little bit better. And it is going to take some getting used to see Mark Martin in a car not numbered 6. It's been 19 years since we have seen that. But here he is indeed in a Chevrolet numbered 01. Matt?
Back in the garage, one of the new teams for 2007, the Red Bull team, and this is Brian Vickers' entry right behind us up on the scales. First off, you ran 4 laps. How's the car?
It's not too bad. We've still got, we were hitting the track a little bit in the front. I had a couple tire ups. We went in and came on in. We also had a left rear going down as well, we found out. And other than that, you know, we were pretty happy with the handling of it when we were down here in the test. So we're going to try to chase that setup a little bit and see where it goes.
And when you look at this session, the temperature changes between now and also the duel on Thursday and then the 500 weekend, do you guys sit down with basically a game plan that's kind of narrow so that way you don't get too far out of the box, or because you're a new team, you guys, you know, are new together, that you work outside the box to see if you can come up with something unique?
Well, I mean, we'd love to come up with something unique and fast, but I think right now we've got to stick to the basics. We can't beat ourselves, and you know, we just got to go out there with a good solid setup that we know works, and just have the best, you know, learn as much as possible and run the whole race.
And he's planning on making his 3rd start in the Budweiser Shootout tomorrow night. Now remember, this is the young man that went to Victory Lane at Talladega last fall. Talladega and Daytona, 2 plate tracks, but Daytona, it's all about handling and speed.
Hey, Maddie, I was just curious if you happen to ask Brian how he and Doug are getting along there, because, you know, Doug's won this race, and how much information he's been able to bring over to him that would be helpful to him.
Well, at Las Vegas, I had that conversation with him during the Las Vegas test, and he said he couldn't be more pleased with how things are going. You can see him right now.
Speed coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Budweiser, official beer of NASCAR, proud sponsor of Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the number 8. by Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. And by Toyota, moving forward. Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, Greg Biffle, Kevin Harvick still hold the fastest laps of this session. This is a 1 hour practice, and later on this evening a 1.5 hour final practice for tomorrow night's shootout that you'll see live on Fox.
One thing I see live right now is that 24 car looks awfully stout, Larry. He got out there in front of this group, and he's been leading around there, and nobody's really made a strong move on him. And I'm thinking if we can get down in there with him, he's probably pretty comfortable riding along in that little automobile. Car looks really smooth. We know Hendrick's got the horsepower.
Watch these cars right here, though. Watch how much they move around in the corner. You know, we heard several reports from the garage here about the cars bottoming out. This racetrack has so many bumps and humps. I don't think the car ever stops moving up and down.
Yeah, it's not bumps up in the air. It's dips. The track has dips in it, and it does the dippity-doo. Boom, 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 boom. And that can really upset a race car, particularly when you're in traffic. They get the duping on you when they go through those bumps like that.
Matt?
And Mike, before our commercial break, now DW was talking about the different characteristics of cars and when they're handling in certain situations, and he was talking about how the back end just jumps out. That's exactly what Elliott Sadler has been complaining about his number 19 Dodge. He says it floats the nose, and just all of a sudden when he tries to put any wheel in it, it just starts to come around. So they're talking about what small adjustments to try to make on that Dodge next time he comes in the garage.
Larry, that car looks like it's porpoising. The nose goes up, the nose comes down, up, down, that the car doesn't exhibit that balance.
And what makes it a big challenge to try to fix, Mike, is you're locked into a big portion of the setup. Basically, every race car out there, they are issued the rear shocks. Everyone will run the same rear shock package. You essentially have to have the same rear springs. You can't be softer than 375. So what you have to work with is the front springs and the front shocks and the anti-roll bar. And what you're trying to do is get the car to keep that right attitude with the package you have in the rear.
Yeah, unlike other racetracks where we see that nose pin to the racetrack. Now, that's a good thing when you tape it up to qualify. But attitude. In the wind tunnel, sometimes the nose up a little bit on these race cars is actually faster than it pinned all the way down to the track, because you're picking the nose up a tad and hiding that rear spoiler just a little bit more. If you look at these cars, unlike tracks we normally go to, you don't see the rear spoiler sticking out. When you see the spoiler on one of these cars, it will not be on the right side like it is on a mile-and-a-half track. You'll see a little bit of it hanging out on the left side like we see that. But you won't see any on the right side, and that's all part of hiding that rear blade.
There's a lot of things that'll help your speed at this place, but two things in particular, and that's what's underneath the hood of that race car with that carburetor restrictor plate, the horsepower of the engine, but anything you can do to get that rear spoiler up out of the air, that's going to help the speed of these race cars.
Ooh, and Tony climbs the hill there, got a little too close to Jimmy Johnson. There's Brian Vickers back out.
And that's one reason why I'm a little bit concerned, and I know I don't want to harp on this from now on, but I'm a little concerned about that rear wing. We know what to do with the rear spoiler on the car today. We know what the angles do. We know what movement it does. We have no experience whatsoever with a rear wing like we're getting ready to tackle.
Greg Biffle in front, new sponsor for his Roush Ford, AmeriQuest Mortgage. They've been with the Roush organization for several years and move into a primary sponsor role this year for Greg Biffle. Krista?
Yeah, another car that's been very fast in this practice is the Ford Fusion of Greg Biffle. You know, a new combination for him and his crew chief, Pat Trison. In fact, a lot of the crew from the 6, the old car, Mark Martin, Pat Trison was the crew chief for that, have come over to the 16. Their first time together was that tire test out in Vegas where Biffle had that wicked wreck. He was nursing the sore shoulder. He said the shoulder's fine, no problems. And the car here has been really good, just a little bit tight. They made a few minor adjustments. They were also trying to check the tires to see if they could go the entire 50 laps on one set of tires. But then the car got a little too tight to finish that test out, guys.
And of those 5 Roush teams, only one crew chief driver combination that was together for the most part of 2006 are together at the start of this season, Robbie Reiser and Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, I didn't like what they did last year. I kind of like what they're doing this year.
Caution is out. Debris on the back straightaway will put us under caution for the second time in this opening round of practice for the Budweiser Shootout cars.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
Closing in on the final minutes of this first of 2 practice sessions for Budweiser Shootout cars. Not all the changes in NASCAR this year are down in the garage area. At NASCAR on Fox, Barry Landis hops into the producer's seat alongside Artie Kepner and Richie Zients, Pam Miller, the rest of our crew in the truck. So even if you...
Yeah, I got you. That's much better. All right, wonderful. We're going to go to 3. All right, moving that way.
This is my 35th year.
Here, Dick Bergman.
Yes, that's me, Mike. Hey, guess what? Jimmy Johnson fans, they've got the push out of the car. Jimmy was just on the radio and said it's a whole lot better. It's a whole lot more free. Chad Knaus just gathered the troops around. Everybody's got smiles on. And oh, by the way, that wrist, Johnson told me, no problem. He broke it in the offseason. He said it's just fine now. And so is his race car. Matt?
Boris said Dick is in the shootout by virtue of winning the pole here in July. So let's basically compare your shootout car with your 500 car. And do you feel the stress and pressure?
Yeah, you feel a lot of stress because, we have a lot of people at Sobey North Energy Drink that, are counting on us to make this race. And it's there's going to be a lot of good cars that don't make it this year with all these entries. But, we don't have the best car for the shootout, but we're saving our pole sitting car for the 500 qualifying Sunday. And, hopefully just like last year, we can do good and, sell more cases and do more races. That's kind of been our motto. And it's kind of the business model we've invented at No Fear Racing to try to help Pepsi sell more product. And in turn, everybody wins. Vance Auto Parts gets to sell our drink in 2,900 of their stores, and I get to race a cool car.
He finished 4th here in July, hoping for better things, especially on pole day, so he can lock himself in with 3rd or better, so the stress will be less. Krista?
Well, another guy we need to talk about has been very good in this practice, Casey Kane. And kind of funny, you guys are talking about all the changes that go on, on the track with combinations, in the TV booth, everywhere. Casey Kane just got on his radio and asked his team director, who's the 44? They replied, of course, that's Dale Jarrett.
That's great. That's great. We were wondering ourselves for a minute. I don't think that is going to be such a hard car to figure out because it is still the UPS car. But I agree, Larry. Trying to put Mark Martin into that 0-1 that used to be Joe Nemechek's car and have Mark not in the 6, that's going to be tough. Mark's going to share that ride with Regan Smith. The Army car, the Army wanted a younger spokesman. Regan is on board, and Ginn Racing. Jay Fry and his folks felt that Joe is such a good qualifier that it really wasn't at a disadvantage for Joe to be in a different numbered car and have to time his way into the field. Wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, and I just saw Brian Vickers out there in that pack of cars driving in the 83 car. His teammate, A.J. Allmendinger, that car is going to be painted exactly like Brian Vickers' car, just a different number.
What can we do about that?
It's like Formula One. That's where they come from, and in Formula One, all the cars look alike.
It's a rule that all team cars have to be painted identical in Formula One. We don't see that usually in NASCAR because of cars having different primary sponsors. We don't see this a lot either.
No,
a driver is working, folks.
When we had the Budweiser cars, Junior did 11 and 12, me and Neil and I, they were very, very similar paint job. We just reversed the colors, but they looked a whole lot alike on the racetrack.
That's what Ray Evernham does with his 9 and his 19 car. They're basically painted the same. They just reverse where the colors are located.
So make your notes, folks, and we will be back on track in about an hour and a half with the second and final round of Budweiser Shootout Practice. Round 1 of practice is won by the defending champion of the race, Denny Hamlin. Had the fastest lap of this first hour of Budweiser Shootout Practice. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back with more a little later on.
Dale Jarrett climbing.
That'll do it for this first hour of practice. We go now to NASCAR Live and John Roberts.
Thanks, guys, and welcome once again to the Nextel Fan Zone, the first of Thanks, guys, and welcome once again to the Nextel Fan Zone, where the first of 2 practices for the Budweiser Shootout is in the history books. Some cars fast, some cars still looking for speed. Hello again, everybody. I'm John Roberts alongside of Jimmy Spencer and my other race day cohort, Kenny Wallace. And, guys, one practice actually almost over. I said it was over. We still got cars going by us. Denny Hamlin is fastest so far, and that should come as no surprise to anybody.
No, not really. You know, it's first time in this race last year, Kenny, and he wins the race. So, yeah, I mean, and let's face it, Gibbs has been very, very strong on plate tracks.
Yeah, I think it's a coincidence. I know Denny's running good, but one thing I learned about practice here, if you go out, Spence, at the back and get you a good run, you can post a good time. Everybody seems to be very competitive right now, running a lot of single file racing.
Well, 21 drivers will run 20 laps, take a break, come back, run 50 more laps. This is one of the most exciting events now that it's under the lights here at Daytona. But as we talked about throughout the day in our first NASCAR Live, everybody alluded to the fact that there's only one finishing position in the Bud Shootout, and that's number 1.
Yeah, there's no points on the line, a lot of money, and a lot of bragging rights. I mean, you're the cat daddy come Saturday night through the following week until the Sunday Daytona 500, the biggest race of the year. But you are the cat of the walk all week.
Hey, look what it did for Denny Hamlin.
Oh, it was big. I mean, Denny Hamlin last year, you know, we all came to Daytona for the Daytona 500. Denny Hamlin's, you know, in the Bud Shootout. We're like, well, he's a rookie and everything. Just a clean race. He just holds the bottom of it, bottom of the track, runs 10 laps. They throw the checkered flag. It wasn't dramatic.
200 grand.
And everybody's like, what just happened? I mean, really, don't you think he ran the bottom of the track?
Yep.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they throw the checkered flag. It was like a practice session. And then we went.
It was hard to pass last year. There was no
And
question
he won.
about that.
He won. It was big.
And hey, by the end of the season, we all knew what happened with that team there. Let's go now back to the garage area and join Bob Dillner.
Well, drivers climbing out of their cars down here after the first official practice of Speed Weeks for the Bud Shootout. Scott Riggs, one of them, and very fast during testing. And I look up at the board, and you're about 7th quick right now. What did you learn from that practice session?
Well, not to look at the board for one thing. That doesn't mean anything. But we did make some, make some changes there, just trying to feel out a good balance for the race car. I feel like we were a little too loose that first practice, and at the same time, we'd lose the nose in different spots in the racetrack. So we played with some different things on the race car and changed some shocks around and seemed to make it drive a lot better, but just got a little too tight there that second run. So, you don't get many chances to get a good pack out there like that to get a good test. So just trying to make good calculated decisions on what to do.
You talk about losing the nose, and I think the big thing that amplifies that here is the bumps here at Daytona. Tell the folks at home how difficult it is to balance the setup with going fast here on those bumps.
Well, it is. You're going so fast around here, and you do have these huge swells that normally running 100 miles an hour you wouldn't feel, but the speeds we're running, they feel like really hard speed bumps that you're going through and dips that you go through. So just trying to find a good happy medium where you can keep the tire on the racetrack and follow the racetrack, the up and down hills and bumps and things like that. And that's the best way you can get your best tire wears, where you're going to get your car to stay the best, the longest. And you just got to find a good balance between all that.
So basically, Wendy Venturini, that was a practice session or another test session for these guys.
Well, a lot of this is the first time these teams are getting together. New crew chiefs, new drivers, new crew members, one of them a new team. With Brian Vickers as the driver, Doug Richards as the crew chief. Doug, this is your first time really on track versus a test session where you're getting to communicate with your driver and with these crew guys. How'd it go?
Well, it's there's always room for improvement. But the encouraging thing is it seems like we're hanging on, but it's Speedway racing. We're never happy, and we're going to continue to work on the Team Red Bull and Toyota and see if we can just keep learning. This Bud Shootout really is in our favor because we can try to work some of these bugs out that we're going through right now in preparation for the 150 on next Thursday, which is really going to tell the story of whether we stay here or not.
Well, this is definitely an advantage for you guys because you get to communicate with your crew members. If you want an adjustment, you're telling them what to do, and there may be miscommunication at first, but this gives you a chance to work out those bugs.
Obviously, the more and more we work together as a group, the stronger we're going to get as a group and as a team. So any track time we can get, anytime we get to work together, always a plus.
All right, well, good luck to you. Doug Richards here with Brian Vickers, new team, new crew members, new team all together here at Team Red Bull. Now let's check in with another change at Daytona with Ray Dunlap.
Well, thank you, Wendy. We've talked about the new drivers here. We've got the Cara tomorrow coming in this year. Toyota's here. So many changes. But the very first change I noticed when I came to the Speedway yesterday was they've changed the tunnel. It used to be green all the way through on this side, and that meant go, get in here. And then on your way out, this tunnel was black and white checkerboard. But this year it's all yellow, and I thought, what does that mean? Does that mean we're under caution? Go slow through the tunnel? That's not what it is at all. Our sponsor, Nextel, is yellow. So now the tunnels at Daytona are yellow. Just one more change that happened here when we got here to Daytona. Guys?
Leave it to Ray to get to the bottom. We were all wondering that story, and Ray has broke it wide open. We now know why the tunnel is yellow. But, guys, just among many changes, every year you have changes, but this year it seems like we have more changes than ever. To see Mark Martin in a U.S. Army uniform, to see Dale Jarrett still with the UPS uniform, but with a different team, not with Robert Yates. That maybe we don't have the number of changes as we did before, but we certainly have the magnitude.
Well, the magnitude is incredible. I agree, JR. You know, I talked to Mark Martin. I said, Mark, you've elected to run 18 races. With that type of schedule, how long would you race? And I teased with him. You know, Mark Martin said that, look, the reason I'm backing off is just racing so much. And my brother Rusty said the same thing. Spence, I think if these drivers could run 20 races a year, they'd race another 10 years.
Yeah, I think your brother's a perfect example. I think that, you know, Kenny, they used to do that. Remember Cale Yarborough and Bobby Allison and well, Bobby did, but Cale and Pearson and a lot of them, they ran a limited schedule. And I said that this last year. Mark Martin's setting the precedent that you can take off, not run full time, not run for this points, and say, hey, I'm going to run what I want to run. And I think it's going to be a good step.
And one thing I'd like to bring up just for a quick debate, what does it say about our sport, JR and Spence, that Ricky Rudd can literally say, see you later, sport, I'm going home to spend time with my family. And a year later, he's fully back into it. I think that's incredible. What does that say? Why didn't they go after a younger driver?
Well, you need someone piloting those cars, and it's just like the same thing with Dale Jarrett. He comes with past champions provisionals, but also he comes with a proven track record. So not only is Toyota entering the sport now, but they're entering it with a marquee driver.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, DJ's got a tremendous fan following, and that's due to what he's done at Robert Yates. Well, Toyota's capitalizing on it. There's no question about it. But yet, I think the thing is all the drivers, to the fans out there, I don't think they have any idea of, and it's not just the drivers, the crew members work their tails off. But, you know, Ricky comes to my house a lot. We have a Bible study, and Ricky and I was talking this winter, and why he's coming back. And he wanted some time off to enjoy himself. And him and Linda and Landon had a great time. Then he's coming back. But my point is that the younger guys come in and they say, oh, man, I want to race every week. But after you've done it for 5, 10, 15 years, some over that, it's time to say, you know what, 38, 40 races a year, never being home, I want to take some time off.
Yeah, I think my assumption of the Ricky Rudd situation is that times are changing. Remember, 8 years ago, it was like, we don't care if a young driver wrecks every week. We want a young, aggressive driver.
That's changed.
It's changed. Now they're saying, hey, Ricky, come back here. Because, we're all happy with you running, in the top 10 every week.
Kenny, you bring a good point up. Remember the Busch series with Rick? I shouldn't even mention names.
Go ahead.
Those kids thought this was easy, and they were blaming the crew chiefs. Well, they strapped Kyle Busch's butt in the car. Then they strapped Jimmy Johnson's butt in the car, and Rick Hendrick met with those two boys and said, you guys ain't got a job no longer.
And also, one more note to close up the Ricky Rudd thing. They also got a new puppy dog while Ricky was out, too. So, we're going to cover everything here. We got 75 hours here at Daytona. We're going to cover everything that goes on at Speed Week. So stick with us, folks. When we come back, we'll talk more about this Budweiser shootout. We'll also talk about these new crew chief and driver combinations. And coming up, a light note about racing.
NASCAR Live is presented by Toyota, moving forward. Brought to you in part by Kawasaki, let the good times roll. And by Subway, Tony Stewart's favorite pit stop. Subway restaurants. Subway, race hard, eat fresh.
One of the best things about starting a new NASCAR season is the fact that you get to come to the Daytona International Speedway here in Daytona Beach. But for one member of our Speed broadcast team, this is a very familiar place.
Well, the questions about the new pit rules can remain to be answered, but we're getting down to answer time. Remember on Thursday here, the twin 125s, we saw that a lot of these cars can run 125 miles without problem. Let's take a little stroll over here with the king of stock car racing. Today at age 52, 5.5 years past his last big win, Richard Petty is a genuine contender to win his 8th Daytona 500. Now, indeed, not since Lee Petty's career-ending crash here at Daytona has this family struggled so much. On Thursday, Patty watched her husband come home in the ambulance. Kyle, with your wrecked car, you had to buy the right to drive somebody else's machine. Why did you make that decision? What was the importance of that?
Well, my car owners, Felix Sabatis and Ted Condor, they pretty much decided that...
Hey, that was really cool, Dave, and once again, it's great to see, and I think I speak for everybody here on Team Speed at Daytona. It is great to have you with us every year down here.
JR, I couldn't hear a word you said, but I'll tell you what pleases me about watching that video clip. I've been coming here since 1972. There's a lot more embarrassing stuff than that out there, but my people have obviously found it and destroyed it. Otherwise, I'm sure you guys would have used it.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot. We're going to talk just a moment here about our favorite Daytona 500 memories. And for me, very easily, after 1998, when Dale Earnhardt won that race, to stand there in victory lane with Richard Childress on one side, Dale Earnhardt on the other, and talk to him about that win was an honor and a privilege you can't match.
Well, for me, it was a very big win because what upsets me about people saying, you know, he's never succeeded. Well, Mark Martin never won the Daytona 500, he's never won the championship, so he hasn't succeeded? Bull crap. You know, I don't like this. People saying that they haven't succeeded. So when Dale Earnhardt finally won, Kenny was one of the best ever on the plate, track racing. You know, if he didn't win the Daytona 500, was he a failure? I don't think so, but yet it was important that day that he did win that race. But yet we've seen some other guys win the Daytona 500 and not have nowhere near the success as a Mark Martin, as a Rusty Wallace, and we can go on down the list.
Well, and let me tell you my favorite Daytona 500 memory, and that was when David Pearson and Richard Petty wrecked off of turn 4. Both their cars stalled out, and I'm on TV going, go, and Richard Petty's crew is running out to push Richard's car across, and David Pearson ends up getting across. They're live, the ARCA cars in our ear. It's a little rough down here, but we are live. But I gotta say this, my nephew, Greg Wallace, Rusty Wallace's boy, he said to me one time in an airplane, he said, my dad, meaning Rusty Wallace's career, would not be complete if Rusty doesn't win the Daytona 500. Well, here is my response now to America about a statement like that. So are you going to tell me that Ward Burton, who won the Daytona 500, and Derek Cope, who won the Daytona 500, are their careers complete now? I don't think so. Listen, it's a great race, and that's all there is to it, okay? It's a great race. You win it, it's a feather in your cap, but when you go to Darlington, it's all a do-over.
I agree. It's the most famous race in all of NASCAR. There's no question. It's the best race to win. But you can't, because you didn't win this race, doesn't mean you're not a success. And I guess what I was getting at was with Earnhardt finally winning it, I think it was pretty special. But I'm not going to take nothing away from Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace, the success that they've had at this racetrack, even though they didn't win the biggest race. But to me, this is the biggest race. Hey, I'm sitting on the back straightaway with a bunch of my fans. I'm excited about it.
Hey, if you take the top 10 attended sporting events in the world in all sports, 8 of them are NASCAR Nextel Cup races. Yes. And on the top of that list is this Daytona 500. There is a reason that 200,000 plus fans come to this place every year. It's like a pilgrimage. It's vacation. There's a reason to be here, and it's the excitement that goes on in and around the track, not just the race.
Kenny brought it up. The most famous finish in all of the Daytona 500 was right here behind us with Pearson and Petty. I can remember Dale Earnhardt losing a tire and letting Derek Cope win the race. I can remember the Bobby Allison scenario. I remember Buddy Baker, Darrell Waltrip stretching his gas mileage. You never know who's going to win this race, even though you say, well, he's won this thing. You never know to the last lap. It's just incredible.
You know, and what I think about the Daytona 500, you know, we're down here in the fan zone, and I look around, I see my dad, Russ Wallace. I see Bruce Patrum. I see guys that really are in their 60s now. And you know what I think, guys? Daytona is a place where everybody congregates once a year, like Sturgis for motorcycles. Look, if you're up north and you're retired, you got to make that pilgrimage down to Daytona, and that's what it's all about.
You know, folks, in the off-season, the members of the Speed broadcast team read everything they can get their hands on to keep up on the latest in racing. But sometimes you just like to have a little light reading, and booksbyu.com is a place you can go and you can personalize your own book. This one is called Racing Hearts, and it's a romance novel, and we did this one for our own Jimmy Spencer, being that, you know, he does have a soft side. Let me read just a bit about In Racing Hearts, our irresistible heroine mixes business with pleasure as a big league agent in the high-stakes world of auto racing. And just to have a little bit more fun, our man Dave Despain has his own take on the book.
Looks like you've hit the big time, Jimmy Spencer, Tony said dryly. As your notoriety increases, so does your choice of women. Jimmy looked hurt. Hey, I take racing seriously, and I don't fool around. Tony shrugged. It's okay. You don't have to play the good guy with me, Mr. Excitement. It won't get you anywhere anyway. Finally, Jimmy said, look, I'm only going to say this once. He reached across to touch her forearm. Tony, I'm crazy about you. You're all I think about when I'm not thinking about racing.
That ain't right. Thank God that's
That was
not right.
great, Jimmy.
And Dave Despain.
It's booksbyu.com. You can go and you can make yourself a part of a racing romance novel. We had to do you and a person named Tony.
Here's mine.
Oh, that ain't fair, you guys. You wait, Teddy. You're behind that camera. I know about you and all those people in this truck.
Hey, Despain, can you get the Cliff Notes version of this book?
Listen, this goes right back to what we were talking about before about embarrassing moments. There is never a limit to a producer's imagination in terms of dreaming up goofy, embarrassing stuff that we can do on TV. But I got to tell you, when they said to me, how about you doing a dramatic reading of a romance novel in which Mr. Excitement is the love interest? I said, man, I'm all over that. You give me that one. I'll take that. Are you guys done down there? You want to know more about what's coming up the rest of the day here? All right, let's go ahead and pop the graphic thing up there. We are in the middle of another NASCAR Live. This one's going to run for $1.50, an hour and a half, and then we will have the happy hour running for the Bud Shootout cars. This will be their final practice before the race, which is upcoming tomorrow night. There will be Cup practice tomorrow that you'll be seeing live here on Speed Channel. And then, of course, we got a special trackside live coming up tonight with the defending Bud Shootout winner, Denny Hamlin, along with Carl Edwards, and we'll wrap up a 7.5-hour run here with Trayton Pink. It starts at 9 o'clock Eastern time. That, of course, with Michael Waltrip. We will take a commercial break right now. Come back on the other side with a whole lot more live from Daytona. Hey, you're not ready for the biggest NASCAR race of the year until you have watched the biggest pre-race show on TV, NASCAR Race Day, built by Home Depot. JR, Jimmy, Kenny, helping to fire your engine before the Daytona 500. NASCAR Race Day built by Home Depot. And as we welcome you back to Daytona International Speedway, forget Mr. Excitement in the shy one. We're going to go to my favorite member of the team there on the Home Depot show. Wendy Venturini, what's going on down there in the garage area?
Well, thanks, Dave. You can hear they're pounded away on the cars behind me. Now, Jimmy Johnson was second on the charts in that Bud Shootout first practice. We just chatted with Chad Knaus, who's overseeing the changes being made to the car. He just says the track is really green right now, and they're just making minor adjustments. You know, he said that's racing, and these are things that need to be done to the car. Now, of course, DirecTV is coming out with their new Hot Pass program. You will see Jimmy Johnson is one of those 5 teams on DirecTV's new Hot Pass program. So that will definitely be one of the things to watch this weekend. It's going to be an exciting program. Jimmy Johnson, one of those 5 drivers. Dave?
Actually, it's to me, Wendy. We're over here in the coach lot where a lot of the drivers spend a lot of their times with some crew chiefs here. A new combination we spoke about yesterday during the Media Day coverage on Speed. Casey Mears and Darian Grubb. First, let's talk to Casey. We chatted yesterday about the change, but what I think is impressive is that you guys are already up in the rig over here talking about things and what's going to happen for tomorrow.
Yeah, we got a lot of catching up to do. You know, obviously some changes made, fairly recent, and Darian's doing all he can to catch up as fast as we can. And so far things are going well. I'm really excited about it. Everything's been going good. Got through tech good, and had a really good dinner with all the guys last night. Went to Rick's boat and just had a little powwow and went around the table and everybody got to know each other. And I think we're doing a good job with the amount of time that we have to get up to speed.
You haven't even been on the track yet, but yet you're chatting about things. What sort of things do you chat about?
everything from from Daytona to a little bit of Vegas, California, some of the testing that we've done, what was working for the car, what we need to do to work together better, and what he looks for out of me and what I look for out of him as far as just communicating better. So we're just trying to get a head start on a lot of that stuff.
Well, it's all about catching up for Casey Mears and this guy right here, Darian Grubb. And, I think that's pretty interesting that, Darian, we're here at Daytona. Daytona 500 is the mega of motorsports, but you're already talking about Vegas and races beyond.
Yeah, we got to plan ahead. I mean, we came in this game a little late with the changes and stuff that were made, so we're just trying to play catch-up. But we got a lot of stuff really in the works there at Hendrick Motorsports, and luckily I was able to be part of those tests and stuff with all 4 teams as lead engineer from my role before. So we're just kind of looking through all the data and going through everything. I want to see what Casey's feelings are for the changes that were made and the comments that I saw in the data, and just make sure we make the best decisions going into Vegas and California and the Bristol test.
This came about very late, just days before the Speed Weeks began. Were you surprised?
Somewhat surprised. It was one of those things that the management there at Hendrick Motorsports decided to make a change, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. This opportunity of a lifetime for anybody that would ever want to be crew chief, with National Guard and GMAC backing you, the Hendrick Motorsports organization with 500 employees there to support you too and pat you on the back as you're walking out the door to go to Daytona. It's pretty impressive. It's an overwhelming feeling.
And you know what's pretty impressive? I was standing here with Darian, actually, Casey, who just walked over there just a little bit, but this combination right here, first and second in the Daytona 500 last year, winning crew chief and also the second place driver, Dave Despain.
Yeah, and the extent to which Darian Grubb stepped up is what I'm trying to say last year when they had the suspension deal for Chad Canales is evidence of the depth of that Hendrick Motorsports team. We are going to the beach right after the commercial break. Check out that boat, Dunlap. I want to see you in that boat when we come back.
Welcome back, everyone, to NASCAR Live, part of Speed Weeks on Speed. 75 hours of coverage from the Daytona International Speedway. Just the sheer size of this facility is enough to invoke awe in the race fan. 2.5 miles of racing out there, and you got a big racetrack when you got your own lake in between the front stretch and the back stretch. And you also know you got a big show when you got a beach and Rutledge Wood.
Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate it. I think that was a fat joke, and I liked it. It was funny. We're making sand snow cones, and I don't think it's just your chairs that are catching admirers. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that handsome fella right behind me on that gorgeous boat is none other than Ray Dunlap.
Yeah, hey, Rutledge, it's so cool to be out here on Lake Lloyd right now, checking out the scene. I'm on an Eliminator boat right now, and the thing that's so cool about this thing is it's painted up like Darrell Waltrip's championship season in the number 11 Mountain Dew car. Now, check out how nice this boat is. Everything's all chromed out beautiful. How about these gauges, huh? Everything's all set up. And right here's our speedometer. Now, you got to go times 10 on this. As this thing rolls around, we're going to get up to about 90 to 100 miles an hour right in that area like that. We're just about ready to go, and our captain today is Jake Fraley. And Jake, if you'll push us on the throttle just a little bit, we'll see what this baby can do. Now, this thing's an Eliminator, and it's from out of California. And right now, he's just got it idling, right? Well, the engines on this thing, a lot more horsepower than you'd ever have on a Nextel Cup car, right? Because a Nextel Cup car has around 700 horsepower. Well, this thing has 2 Ilmor engines in it. They're both V10s. 5 blades on the props, and man, we're talking about some serious horsepower. We're gonna wind her up here a little bit. Go ahead, Jake. We're gonna get some gas on this thing halfway down Lake Lloyd right now, and we've got a nice run going down here. We're only going about 40 miles an hour. Is that all the faster this thing goes? Show me something. Ah! Well, that's some serious horsepower now. We get down to the end of the lake. We'll do a nice little cut turn right here, and then I think we're going to see what this baby will do. Now, he does a double throttle lever on this thing. That way he lays one back, and you've got one prop turning a lot faster than the other. That helps you go around the corner. And when you get around that corner, now we're going to get some real gas and see what this baby does. He doesn't want to wind it up too much because this lake's just not big enough. But we're at 50, 55 miles an hour, 60 right now. And as she climbs up, this is like going down the backstretch in a Nextel Cup car. This is awesome, guys.
ever had any doubt about how big this place is, if you can take a boat, go 60 miles an hour, and not even make it but about halfway down the backstretch before you run out of water, that shows you just how huge this place is. But what a very cool display there. Thanks a lot to Rutledge, and thanks a lot to Ray Dunlap for out there risking life and limb on that Eliminator boat to give us a great look at this.
Why wouldn't they let us ride that boat, me or Kenny?
They don't want you to wreck it, Jimmy.
We'd wreck it.
Not that you would wreck it. They're just worried.
That thing looks fast.
They saw Jimmy drive on the short tracks up in the Northeast, and they said, hey, man, this boat, we got to keep it intact. Folks, stick around. There is so much more to come on this edition of NASCAR Live. We're going to take you right up to the happy hour session for the Budweiser Shootout cars and have a lot of fun along the way. Stick around. February 18th, the Speed Fantasy Cup returns. Enter the Nextel Cup Challenge, circuit number 1 for a chance to win $25,000. Watch your favorite driver enjoy big riches of victory. Why not you? Log on to speedtv.com to sign up for the Speed Fantasy Cup Nextel Challenge today. Well, if I could quote my good friend Kenny Wallace once said last year, that if your relationship between your race team depends on how well you run, you shouldn't be together. You should be friends off the track and on the track as well. And as we find out in this upcoming story, a lot of drivers and crew chiefs believe that is very true if you're going to have a successful relationship in Nextel Cup racing.
For me as a driver, what I need in a crew chief is a guy who, can bring a car to the racetrack that's fast, and then who also can listen to me and balance what I say with the data he's seeing. And I think it takes an extremely intelligent person and someone with great people skills to be a good crew chief.
For every driver and crew chief, there's different things that they both look for. And to find a crew chief, I wanted someone that I felt like I could get along with. And not only, over the radio and communicating about the race car, but also being able to communicate throughout the week, and maybe we'd go eat dinner, or maybe our families would hang out. Just have that relationship away from the racetrack.
It has to be a friendship. It's not, people say it's almost like a marriage, which it could be. But, you don't spend a night with a guy, so pretty much it's all about communication, and that's good with any company, and you want to make sure that you have that within in order to become better and make yourselves better.
Mine and Kenny's relationship's great. I mean, for the way we do it, we've probably went to dinner a couple times and, and talked racing or something like that. We went to lunch a bunch during the time I'm at the shop, but our relationship is more about racing at the track, communication, and making our cars fast. And Kenny Francis, that's all he does. That's all he thinks about is making our Cup car fast. And I just like being a part of it and getting to communicate with him, because he's as good as anybody to talk to and learn things from, and when you say something, he listens and tries to apply it.
You have to trust the guys you're working with, especially the crew chief. And, I think a lot of times doing things behind the scenes, with them builds that relationship, whether it's going fishing or doing anything together outside of the racing, helps build a relationship, and that will help a driver and crew chief have success.
Earlier on NASCAR Live, Larry McReynolds told us about his relationship with the late, great Dale Earnhardt. He said they were great friends before, they were both winners, but when they got together, it just didn't click, and they were great friends all the way to the very end. But it just shows you how hard, guys, it is. You take a winning crew chief like Larry Mack, a legendary driver like Earnhardt, that thing just didn't work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, even think back, one of the biggest failures in all of motorsports was Darrell Waltrip, Waddell Wilson, and Hendricks Motorsports. And, when those guys all together, that was the dream team, and it was the biggest failure that I can ever remember as far as big guys. But Carl Edwards says it best. I want a guy that's done his homework, he's got the car prepared, and when I get to the racetrack, he believes in me that what I need. And I think, Kenny, you drive today, and, I've driven, and it's a situation that if the crew chief says to you, this is the way Jimmy's done it, you don't want to hear that. No. I want to hear, Kenny, what do I need to do to make the car better? And that's what makes a good crew chief. Listen to what that driver's got to say.
And I got a lot to say about this. First of all, here's my theory. It should be the driver and the crew chief against the car. Driver and crew chief against the car, not driver against crew chief. Now, I really feel this about the late, great Dale Earnhardt. Here's the way the late, great Dale Earnhardt used to do it. I'm loose. Now, that's what Earnhardt would say, I'm loose. Here's the way Rusty would say it. Well, the right rear's getting down a little bit and the left front's coming up, and here's what I think I need. Two great drivers, but explaining it completely two different ways. You got to remember, Larry McRell's a great friend of ours, but he was used to working with Davey Allison. Davey was really into the car. You know, and there's just a lot of different drivers that need a lot of different styles of crew chiefs. Just got to get the combination.
Jimmy, what'd you say when you were behind the wheel of your crew chief? How'd you describe what was going on?
Well, I had some great guys. You know, Jimmy Fitting and one with Mike Hill and those guys. But we had a big argument here at Daytona. And I'm telling them what the car's doing, and they won't believe me. And Junior Johnson came on that radio and says, damn it, listen to what he's telling you. Tighten this thing up. We won the race. The thing is what Kenny's saying, you know, is so true. To me, I think when you got a guy like Juan Pablo coming in, I'm excited about Juan Pablo. I think this guy can drive a race car. He's got the best crew chief he can have in the garage area, Donnie Wingo. And the reason why, Donnie listens, and Donnie will fix what he needs to fix to make that car fast. He's not the type of guy that says, well, this is the way I've done it before, blah, 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 blah. That is the key to being successful. It's obviously Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson. What a combination. Mississippi and Smoke. They believe in each other to no end. That's what makes a success, because now the rest of that team feeds off of those two guys. But I think, Kenny, more so this year than ever, the team effort is going to be so outstanding. If the team messes up at all, they're going to go home.
Well, you know, we're not up here on a bully pulpit. You know, everybody's in the trailers right now, including the Furniture Road Chevrolet. They're watching us up here right now. The reason we're talking about this is because Hendrick Motorsports, one of the biggest race teams in the United States, just changed crew chief 5 days before the Daytona 500. So everybody in the trailers right now, you know, that's what we're talking about, is 61 cars down here, 18 cars going to go home, and you got the big teams. Look at Penske. Got rid of Matt Borland because all of a sudden he can't get along with Ryan Newman. What? The Rocket Man? Matt Borland made the Rocket Man. Now, a year later, he's gone.
He's gone.
I mean, I'm totally confused. 1 year he gets along, the next year he don't know what he's doing. What's this?
Egos.
Hey, you know, it's real fun talking about the communication, though, is set your scanner on Kenny Wallace's in-car radio. It's hilarious during a race.
Egos.
Well, the sun is starting to set on a very full day of coverage here for speed at the Daytona International Speedway.
That's
and
pretty.
we have just scratched the surface so far.
Great
There's
crew
a
chief.
legendary crew chief for you. 3 championships right there for Ray Evernham. Now he's become a legendary owner as well.
Y'all come see us at the Neon Garage.
NASCAR tracks all over the country trying to figure out a way to enhance the fan experience, if you will. The Neon Garage out of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I understand that the Bob Dillner impersonator is off the scale. Absolutely some of the best. And you know, I mean, if you pay that amount of money for a ticket, you ought to see a good Bob Dillner impersonator, don't you think, Wendy Venturini?
No, yeah, I don't know about a Bob Dillner impersonator, but here at Daytona, there's a cool interactive thing for the fans. The Nextel fan viewing area. You see me, behind me is the fans in their fan viewing area. They can actually reach through there and get an autograph from a driver. You see how close they get to the teams. We are in Jeff Gordon's pit. Of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was just out of the car for practice, and he came out and signed some autographs for the fans. Now, something else the fans can do, an interactive part, you walk outside the garage, look above me, and there's more fans up there where they can access the drivers. There we see our Bob Dillner.
Wendy, can I have your autograph, please?
Well, Bob, I don't think this is NASCAR's rules, but
I'm a big
Bob,
fan of
he
yours.
never plays by NASCAR's rules, but sure, I'll sign Bob.
And that's what's really neat about this, is Wendy was explaining how they look through the plexiglass there. I'm getting her autograph right now. It's a pretty neat deal. The fans really get to interact with the drivers. They get to stand on top of the Nextel fan viewing area here and shout down at the drivers and the crews, and they get to see the cars going by and see all the activity that's going on with all the drivers and the teams here at Daytona as they prepare for the Daytona 500 and the Bud Shootout. I gotta love this. I got Wendy Venturini's autograph right here. Look at that. To Bob, you are my hero, Wendy Venturini. Thank you, Janice from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. A lot of other stuff going on. I just tossed it on the ground. You like that? But the actual courtyard here is pretty neat as well. You got to take a look at this. You can see the kids playing in the sand right there. They have sand boxes. They have other viewing areas for the fans to really check out the action. We're going to walk down here a little bit. They even have an elevator for the fans to come up on. They don't even have to walk up the stairs. But this was a multi-million-dollar project that Daytona International International Speedway did just a few years ago. It's several acres right here, and in fact, you see the Budweiser Bistro way down there. That's where you can stop, have a drink or two, have some food, enjoy your time when the cars aren't on the racetrack, and then run right up here. But you know what? You got to check this out. Come over here. I found another guy I can get an autograph from. I think that's Dave Despain. Dave, can I get your autograph, buddy?
You're the impersonator. Get away from me. I don't want to know about you. What? Is it back to me? Here, I have a question about this whole business, and I'd kind of like to direct it back down to the boys downstairs, because you guys have been coming to Daytona a long time. The word fan experience, the concept of fan experience. When we all started coming down here, the fan experience was pretty simple. You paid $20, you got a seat up there on an aluminum bleacher, you toasted your buns for however long the race was, and you went home. I mean, that was the fan experience. It's difficult for people who weren't around back then to conceive how that has changed between then and now.
Hey, Dave, you know, I love that the scenario you just brought up, and what I really think changed our sport some, 3-4 years ago when NASCAR decided to have the fan zone was they were paying attention to what was happening an hour away. Universal Studios. They said, we have a speed park here. It's called Daytona International Motor Speedway. And we got to grab some of those customers that are over there and bring them over here. Sometimes in the Daytona 500, even though it's the great American race, you get 2 hours into that thing, you're like, okay, who's leading now? Well, now you can bring these fans to the fan zone. The kids can play in the sand. They can look in the garage areas. It's an experience. So I really think that Daytona International Speedway, the France family, they looked down there at Universal Studios and Disney World and said, let's do that. Let's do it at the racetrack.
I think the big thing, too, Kenny, is they started this when they built Kansas City, and everybody said, you're crazy, man. We got to push these cars through tech. We're sitting right behind the tech garage, inspection viewing. The fans are 5 feet away from the cars that are going to race the Daytona 500. No other major league sports can have that kind of fan interaction. None.
And that's what makes racing so great is seconds before one of the most intense experiences ever, you can stand there right with the driver that's going to compete in this thing. And by the way, Jimmy, sitwithjimmy.com, are there still tickets left, or have you sold them all?
No, we sold my section out, so they called me up.
Sold out.
Now they called me up and said, we're adding more.
So you can still sit with Jimmy by going to sitwithjimmy.com. You can also still get tickets to the Daytona 500 by going to racetickets.com or calling 1-800-PITCH-SHOP. We got to take another break here as we look at some All-Stars and the guy who's dominated the All-Star event. We remind you there are 99 days to the All-Star Challenge. It's only on speed, Jimmy Spencer. Wednesday is Valentine's Day, but race fans, you're going to love Thursday because it's Duels Day on Speed. The Dual 150s will have more drama this year than ever before, and they are exclusively on Speed as the countdown continues. Right now, the work in the garage area is all focused towards the Budweiser Shootout, which is on the horizon. We've got another practice coming up very shortly. Now, when it comes right down to it, you could probably put your finger on thousands of different things that have to go exactly right for somebody to become a Nextel Cup champion. But right now, we ask the drivers, what is that one thing that has to happen for them to have a successful season?
I think for a successful 2007 season, we just need to make the race cars go faster, just to be more competitive from a speed standpoint. Having a fast race car will make, for better results, which will make people smile, which will make people get along, which will make for a good year for sure.
We need everything to go right for us this year. As tough as the competition is, and the way things are, we feel like we need everything to go right. The team has to work well. Myself and my crew chief have to work good together, and everything just has to follow our way.
You can't really have any part of it that's off to have a successful season, especially if you're trying to compete for a championship. You have to have everything in order, and it has to start here at Daytona. You can't be off at any point in the season.
I think really one thing I'm going to say is making the first 5 races, if I can use all as one, just getting in there where we're solid in the points where we can race, and then it's going to be about, working with Toyota, getting our Toyotas where they need to be, and, using this as a building year, but hopefully if everything goes well, we can turn it into more than that, hopefully win a race. But the biggest thing is going to be taking one race at a time until we get through those first 5.
We just need consistency right now, especially with the 19 team. We need to show up every week
with the consistency, the knowledge, the know-how to have a top 10 run and think that's going to happen each and every week.
Sure, you want to win races. You know, we got to back that up, and you want to run more consistently in the top 5. And, you know, we have a lot of top 10 finishes last year. We just got to improve on our top 5s and try to finish the deal.
I think, you know, like all the teams are saying, that you want to come out of the box, you know, strong. You know, we don't necessarily, you know, have to go out and win every race to start the season, but we want to be real solid, not really make any mistakes. And you know, my thought is come out, get the first 5 or 6 races under your belt. You know, even if we have to run the same cars over and over, let's just, you know, we'll stick with that car and just keep tweaking it. So let's just hone in real early in the season and figure out, you know, what's going to make these cars tick.
There's no magic to it. You know, it's just you put the people together, you build the cars, and you do your jobs. And if you do it right, it works for you and it happens. If you don't, then you struggle.
You have to love the bluntness of young Reed Sorensen, because when we asked him what has to go right, he said everything. You know, I mean, maybe it was a little tongue-in-cheek he said that, but if you want to be a Cup champion, everything does have to go right from the get-go. I mean, we've seen guys like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart go from a last-place finish in the 500 to winning the championship. But in this day and age, with how tight everything is, everything has to go right.
Well, the thing is, too, Johnny, is that, you know, Reed Sorensen's a very talented driver, but he's not come close to winning. But let's look at Kyle Busch. He's with a different organization, and he's won a bunch of races. So, you know, Kenny, I mean, there's a lot to be said about the organization you're with. Denny Hamlin's a perfect example of that.
Well, you know, I go back 2 years ago. The question right now is, you know, what do you need to do good? Well, I would go to Dale Earnhardt Jr. and I'd go to Jeff Gordon, I'd sit him down, and I'd say 2 years ago, when you guys were running bad, remember, and you were going through crew chiefs, what was wrong? And I'm sure Dale Jr. would say to me, well, I lost my crew chief, Tony Uri Jr. You know, Jeff Gordon would say, well, maybe I didn't like Jimmy Johnson's, you know, springs, the way he ran the car differently and everything. And I would build from there because, you know, it changes all the time. You know, one thing that I heard somebody say is, you know, there's a moving target every week. Sometimes, and most of the times, the little secret code inside the garage area is those Goodyear tires. You know, Goodyear's always changing the compounds, the sidewall structure. It'd drive a crew chief crazy. But, you know, you go back 2 years ago, that's what I would say. What happened to those guys 2 years ago?
To make the turnaround.
And then what do we need?
And guys, you know, it's probably the only sport in the world you can really put your finger on where guys spend a lot of time helping out the people that are supposed to be their competition. I mean, teammates talk, they try to help those guys win. Drivers talk amongst each other and give them and help them out, because it's a very small fraternity, as you guys all know. There's 33 guys, Kenny, that race every Sunday, and everybody helps everybody else out.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, I really like the relationship that Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson have because, you know, you got to hand it to Jeff Gordon. I mean, what a great friend of mine, and I like listening to his interviews, you know, because when his teammate who has the same equipment's out there kicking everybody's butt, you know, here's old Jeff Gordon, the 4-time champ, you know, telling the truth, going, man, I just can't run his type of setups, you know. But you know what? Stop and think about it. If you took another driver and put him in Jeff Gordon's car and he ran that way, he'd been fired. But because Jeff Gordon has proved his ability for so long, you know, he gets a bye. Well, let's work with Jeff. He's a 4-time champion. He'll get it. And, you know, that's patience, and believing in that driver is a huge, huge advantage.
I think this year, more than any year, with Toyota coming in with all these new teams, you're going to see a lot of crew changing going on a lot earlier in the season than you've ever seen before. I'm talking 3, 4, 5 races in. I think you're going to see some changing going on simply from the standpoint to try to get competitive.
Yep, and the pressure to be competitive is so intense. Let's now go to Ray Dunlap.
Hey, JR, you know, there's so many people that go to work to make the Daytona International Speedway look great. I'd like to introduce you to Bob Fowler. Bob is the painter here. He paints just about everything. And you say to yourself, how in the world do you paint a 2.5-mile racetrack? Well, it's because you got a cool little scooter like this. Check it out. You put 5 gallons of paint on here, you get this thing going, you flip the nozzle up, and you just start painting the wall. And this baby will go around. Let me see if I can get her to pivot a little bit. You just ride her around. And this little handle right here, when you push this handle, it starts spraying the paint. And Bob can go around this speedway in about 45, 50 minutes. And when there's all those scuffs on the wall and it looks bad, well, the next day it doesn't look bad. This isn't Darlington. They don't want it to look bad. They want it to look nice. Bob the painter keeps it looking sharp.
Hey, Ray, won't you flip over on that thing in the corners? How's he stay up?
No, he's got it all set up here, Kenny, just so it works great. Now, check this out. this thing will really get going too if you want to go. And you know all the little lines on the parking spaces? Well, you just put your nozzle down there at the end, and then you can just stop like this, and you put her in reverse, and you push the button. Well, I don't have the painter hooked up right now, but if I did, I could draw lines over in the Speed TV compound, and I'd put special parking for Ray.
Hey, Ray, did they use one of those contraptions to paint the tunnel?
No, I think Bob had to do all that by hand.
Hey, quickly though, Ray, you should never pick on Darlington. Let me tell you what, Kenny knows this. I've raced there. You can't help but hit that wall.
All right. Ray, thanks a lot. He goes from 60 miles an hour in the Eliminator boat to about, well, 5 on the painter. But that's Ray. He's versatile. He can handle any type of craft. Hey, folks, big night tonight on Trackside. Special guests Denny Hamlin and Carl Edwards join Steve Burns and the boys tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time for Trackside, live from Daytona. Most fun you can have outside of the track.
Dusk at Daytona. The lights are on, and in anticipation of the final practice, happy hour for the Budweiser Shootout cars. They'll be mimicking the conditions under which they will race tomorrow night. That will, of course, be the competition debut for Toyota. Dale Jarrett and Brian Vickers both earned spots in the Bud Shootout based on their previous performances in other brands of cars. During the offseason, they have switched to Toyota. That's what they'll drive tomorrow night, and they've both drawn good starting positions up near the head of the field. So this will be the first time to see those cars in action, those very controversial cars in action on the track. With more on the Toyota story, let's go down to the garage area and catch up with Dillner. Bob?
Well, Dave, it is one of the biggest stories in this garage area this year. The Toyota Camry being introduced into the NASCAR realm here for the Cup Series. They've been in the Truck Series for a couple of years. But you talk about Michael Waltrip Racing and Team Red Bull. They are very high profile. A lot of people, a lot of focus going towards those two Toyota teams. But let me tell you something. In testing down here at Daytona, and we were live here on Speed during testing, this Bill Davis Racing Group was very, very fast as well. In fact, the man that is leading the charge, the competition director for Bill Davis Racing, is Tommy Baldwin. He's acting as Mike Skinner's crew chief down here in Daytona. They're working with NASCAR right now on the spoiler height and the rear quarter height for the 23 car. We'll try to get a word with Tommy here for just a second. Tommy, we talk about Toyota a lot, and just talk about where things are at right now for you and the Toyota bunch.
Well, I mean, we'll know more tomorrow, obviously. You know, everybody's getting through templates and getting it stickers and working with NASCAR today. But so far, the results have been good. We've had a pretty good winter of testing both here and Vegas. See what happens.
All right, we'll let Tommy get back to work here. But as he said, Wendy Venturini, they look good here in Daytona during testing, and also that Las Vegas test on the 1.5-mile super speedway.
Well, there are some other Toyota teams in this garage area. We're on the other side from Bob Dillner over here at Michael Waltrip Racing now. Of course, the 55 of Michael Waltrip getting ready for this week, and the 00 of David Rudiman. Now, his crew chief is Frankie Kerr. Now, Frankie's not under the spotlight a lot of times, but really the pressure's on now, moving over to this big publicity with Toyota coming on board into NASCAR. How are your nerves?
Right now, I think I have an ulcer, but I'm not sure. No, it's going really well. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. Daytona, we got to get in the show. After that, I feel, you know, our race program is real good, and you know, we'll be fine on the 1.5-mile tracks, and we've tested real well. It's just a matter of how we draw and how we get through the room.
All right, now working for Michael Waltrip Racing, I know he's had to have some kind of media training for you guys. Did you have to go through a media training to work for Michael Waltrip?
Well, just hanging around Michael, you get lots of it.
All right, there you have it, and that is Frankie Kerr, crew chief for David Rudiman as the engines are warming up here in the garage, Dave.
You know, one of the interesting things about this Toyota story is that it's really two stories. There's the story of the on-track competition. How well will the Camry compete in NASCAR racing? The other story, which was the subject of the front page article in USA Today, the battle, the competition to win the hearts and minds of NASCAR fans and to prove to them that this Japanese manufacturer belongs in American racing. And as we go back to you guys, I'd be interested in your perspectives on the connection between the two. If they run well on the racetrack, is that going to make it easier for the fans to accept Toyota as a competitor?
Hey, Dave, well, Jim Oss from Toyota told us a while back, he said this is like a college exam. We're cramming, studying, and when we come time to go to the Daytona 500, that's going to be the final exam to see how we've done. Now, other manufacturers taking a strong look at Toyota, and Jack Roush perhaps had some of the strongest words about Toyota. Here's what Roush had to say. Never one to back down from a challenge. Jack said, I expect to hand Toyota their heads over the short term. Nobody's frightened. We're going to go to war with them, and they should give us their best shot. Well, we know they're going to give everybody their best shot, for sure.
They are. Jack's making a heck of a statement there, but he could back it up. I think right now Toyota did step into this sport. I'm not really convinced they've picked the right bunch of people, so to speak. I think the strongest Toyota team is Bill Davis's. It shows it in testing. Red Bull struggling very much so. Michael's team struggling some at Las Vegas, but you know, Bill Davis's team looked pretty doggone strong at Daytona and here at Vegas test, and time will tell.
You know, I mean, I talk a lot, I know that, but I've got a lot to say about this, so I got to kind of cut it short. But, you know, let you in on a little bit. You know, I've got a lot of friends, and I can't say names, but I got some really good teams that said they were upset Toyota didn't come to them and ask them, you know, to maybe change their make. And think about it. If Toyota wouldn't have made all these new teams, okay, stop and think about what I just said. If Toyota would have not made all these new teams, there'd be more people in the Daytona 500. Toyota would have been in the Daytona 500, going after some struggling existing teams. Now we got all these cars. Let me go to another subject now. You know, you listen to Jack Roush. He says his fear is that Toyota's going to come in and spend all this money. In that article in USA Today, Jack Roush said, we're going to put aside $10 million more to fight Toyota. Well, let's go to another big name. You know what Roger Penske has always said to us?
Be careful. He will be Toyota. He will be the number one Toyota team.
And you know what? For 2 years now, Roger Penske comes on NASCAR race day and he says, Kenny, it's a free enterprise. America is free. Well, here's my response. If it is a free enterprise, then the wealthiest person will win. So chew on that.
Hey, Kenny, now also Larry McReynolds during our testing shows made a very important point. He said if Toyota, like they're being accused by a lot of people of, is coming into this sport with an open checkbook, just buying everybody, why didn't they go write a check big enough to get Joe Gibbs Racing to be a Toyota or to get Roger Penske to go Toyota? They haven't actually come in with that big of a checkbook just trying to buy this thing.
They came in with a big checkbook, JR, but I don't know
why. As big as it could be.
You know, Kenny, I agree. I don't know why they didn't do that.
Well, yeah, and what I said, and like I said, I got to cut a fine line here, race fans, because, I'm a racer still, and I love doing this TV, but, this Toyota deal's about driving me crazy. I hope it just all ends pretty soon, but some really good teams out there, 34th, 30th points, saying, why didn't they come to us?
The thing, this is my take on the Toyota. I think Toyota's coming in real quietly. That's what they've done. That's how they've set themselves up. But the success is going to be when they go to Ganassi or Penske or one of those organizations. At time, they will do that, fans. But I accept Toyota. I think it's great. I think it's one of the best things that's happened to our sport
Free enterprise.
now.
One thing we do know for certain right now is there will be a lot of eyes on Toyota, and especially Dale Jarrett as he leads the field to the green flag with the Budweiser Shootout goes green in a little bit more than a day here. Folks, stick around. Much more NASCAR Live to come.
Gentlemen, start your engine! I want to make the trip to Daytona Beach. I want to sit up high in the highest seats at Daytona. Whoa, Daytona. I'd travel tomorrow or Manila Beach just to watch a race at Daytona Beach. The 24 hours and the Gatorade wins. The race for the pole, I want to take it all in at Daytona. Whoa, Daytona. The NASCAR Super Bowl, center of speed. I want to see it all at Daytona Beach. On Seville, and 210. Daytona is the place where racing begins. Starting each year in the February son. Since 59, it's been number one. I won the Daytona 500. I won the Daytona 500. I want to watch the girls while they watch the race with their long sleeve shirts tied around their waist at Daytona. Whoa, Daytona. Ain't no place I'd rather be than watching a race at Daytona Beach. Eddie and Earnhardt are still the key when it comes to racing at Daytona Beach. Whoa, Daytona.
All right, race fans, if that didn't get your blood pumping, you must not have a pulse, because that'll get you fired up seeing all that old footage. To a little bit of a beachy song. Let's take a look at some of the weather across the nation, and not like we're rubbing it in or anything. We just simply wanted to point out that it's beautiful down here, but some of the other places around the country, home of Kenny Wallace and Jimmy Spencer, Charlotte, North Carolina, 48 degrees. Home of the Racing Bodines in Chemung, New York, is 24 degrees right now. And then South Bend, Indiana, home of Ryan Newman and David Stremme, they are in at a balmy 18 right now. In Cambridge, Wisconsin, home of champion Matt Kenseth, 8 degrees. And here we are at Daytona, 72 degrees. So I can't
if you get total Chemung, hey, South Bend and Cambridge, it still doesn't come to 72.
All right, look at our man on the beach, Rutledge Wood.
You guys, I'm starting to be a little lonely. The sun's going down behind me. We had a beautiful sunset. John made these beautiful Adirondack chairs that I've had a lovely time in. And I really wish that I had some friends to join me. I told you guys I made sand snow cones earlier. But what I'm really excited about, we got trackside coming up tonight. This is one of my favorite weeks of the whole year because everybody's so kind of laid back still. It's like the first week of school after summer. I really think everybody should come down here next year. If you're not coming, come back next year. You can be at the Bud Shootout selection we did last night. You can come see you guys in the fan zone. You can even meet the one and only, one of my favorites, Mr. Ray Dunlap. Ray, take it away, my friend.
You know, Rutledge, we start talking about all the behind-the-scenes people when things happen here at Daytona International Speedway. Yeah, this place is huge, but how many people are involved in just something like the pre-race show? Now, check out this big stage I'm on right now. This thing comes from J. Howard Events, and you'll notice it's ready to go for the ARCA REMAX Series race, but they're able to take that part down and put up another part that'll say something completely different. Well, how many people does it take to make something like this happen? About 60. If you've been out to see the speed stage or you've been to the Nextel fan experience, all of those people that help put the things up and get them from track to track, most of them come from J. Howard, and you can see right here they got a big mixing board. This thing's all ready for audio down trackside. They got 3 or 4 semi-trailers here full of all kinds of cool stuff to get it set up. You guys earlier were talking about the fan experience. Well, to make a great fan experience, you need all of this stuff, and there's 60 people here working from J. Howard just to make it look seamless. JR?
Hey, Ray, there's a lot of people at this racetrack that we can brag on. The folks from J. Howard are simply the best. They do stuff nobody else could ever do, and they do it great. Well, folks, stick around. Still much more to come from our stage here in the Nextel Fan Zone. Got a lot more fun coming your way.
Hey, it's a stock car broadcast marathon. Happy hour is coming up for the Bud Shootout cars. That'll be live here on the old Speed channel. Then we're going to come back with a half-hour edition of NASCAR Live to kind of wrap up that portion of the day. Trackside, a very special edition tonight at 8 o'clock, including the defending Bud Shootout winner, the rookie from last year, Denny Hamlin. And we'll wrap up the evening with Trade and Paint that starts at 9 o'clock Eastern time with Michael Waltrip. And now I understand standing by with one of the competitors, one of the stars of the show, is our Wendy Venturini. Wendy, who you got down there?
Thanks, Dave. That was great timing because the 31 Jeff Burton's guys were warming up the engine there, and we were a little bit worried we wouldn't be able to hear Jeff. But tell us how first practice went. It sounded like you were a little tight. Have you made those adjustments, and what are you going to look for in the second practice session?
Yeah, we fought really tight with the Signature Chevrolet. We made a lot of changes here, just kind of experimenting, to be quite honest, just making some changes, hoping we can learn something for tomorrow night, but also for next Sunday. And but real excited about being in a Bud Shootout with a Signature Chevrolet. Hadn't been in it for a long time, and looking forward to being in the middle of it.
And it's got to be pretty cool to give you that extra edge over the other drivers that aren't in it, to get a little bit more track time, get out in the draft for this weekend.
You know, I haven't been in it more than I have been, and every time there's a race and I'm not in it, it makes me mad. And so I'm glad I'm in it. I hope I'm glad I'm in it when the race is over tomorrow night. I have a feeling it's going to be a little wild, but that's what it's about. You know, the shootout deal is all about just going for it and trying to make something happen, and we'll be in the middle of that.
All right, good luck to you. We're going to let Jeff climb in his car. Practice is getting ready to start in just a few minutes, but let's check in with Bob Dillner.
Well, on the other side of the garage area, there sits David Gilliland's car that he will use for the Daytona 500. They will practice and qualify this weekend, but we're here with birthday boy Todd Parrott. The boys put me up to it, I got to admit it. Happy birthday to you, and how's this car running?
The car's good. You know, we ran 21 laps a while ago in shootout practice, and you know, David said the car drove great. Same car we had down here on the test and in drafting practice, and the car worked really well. And you know, hopefully we get this M&M Ford Fusion and up front and keep it up front.
So now, what are you trying to accomplish with this, the final practice session before the Bud Shootout?
Right now, you know, we made a 21-lap run. The first segment is 20 laps, and you know, what I told him is go out there. If the car feels good and everything feels good, I'd like to run 40 laps just to see where the car's at and see where our tires, cambers, and all that stuff go, and give us a good idea, you know, what we'll see tomorrow night.
Get some M&Ms for your birthday?
I got lots of M&Ms for my birthday.
A big happy birthday for Todd Parrott here in the garage area. And guys, yeah, the crew did put me up to it. He's going to scold them now.
You know, when you crank up a 7.5-hour broadcast marathon, as we've discussed, you ask for commitment from people. You ask a lot those broadcasters to come in and sit down and go for the long haul. And now, JR, I understand one of your guys is going to bail on you, although in this case it sounds like he's got a pretty good excuse.
Hey, Dave, race car driver Kenny Wallace goes down to Volusia. His dirt car wins the first race. You're the UMP points leader, or actually in second place, but just by 1 point. You're going to go out there and race tonight, but tell us why you will not be able to run for the championship.
Well, I can't run for the UMP championship. It's 8 straight nights at Volusia because I'm loyal. I am loyal to Ted Lakaitis and Hunter and Miner and everybody at Speed TV. So, Spencer, listen to this.
Now, I know why you're doing this. He challenged me last year. He says, you don't know nothing about the fans. He's finally realizing you fans are very important. He's coming back.
I cannot run for the championship at Volusia because tomorrow night I have to be in Victory Lane for the Bud Shootout. So I'm giving up.
My hero.
We need you, Kenny Wallace.
Tony Stewart looked at me and he said, you're leading the points and you're going to go do TV? I said, yeah. So I'm going to Volusia. I'll see y'all later.
Good luck, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
That is a loyal TV guy, Kenny Wallace, and we sure appreciate it because we can't do it without Kenny Wallace. Can't do it without anybody out here on Team Speed. So, folks, stick around. We got much more to come from NASCAR Live as we take you right up to the second Budweiser Shootout practice of the day.
NASCAR Live is presented by Toyota, moving forward. Brought to you in part by Kawasaki, let the good times roll. And by Subway, Tony Stewart's favorite pit stop. Subway restaurants. Subway, race hard, eat fresh.
Well, we're just a few moments away from the final Budweiser Shootout practice of the evening, and this is the one that is under the conditions under which we'll be racing the Bud Shootout, so it's a very important practice session coming up. Denny Hamlin was fastest under the daylight conditions. We'll see who was fastest in the nighttime. But right now, let's send it back to Ray.
Well, John, I'll tell you, we've been all over the Daytona International Speedway today. I've been out by the lake, been on the boat, been everywhere, but the bad part is I'm out of gas, and so's my speed golf cart. So we've come over here to Sunoco to get some 260 GTX fuel in this thing. Now, the stuff they put in the race cars is 98. Can you help a brother out a little bit here? I got more work to do tonight, but we're going to put some fuel in this thing here. But the important thing to realize is Sunoco brings the fuel to each and every Nextel Cup race, and they supply it to the race teams, and that's the most important thing. But, you know, we got more work to do tonight, so I got to get some fuel in this thing and get ready to go. So, Wendy, you got any fuel left?
I do. I have plenty of fuel. It's our job at Speed to give you a unique look at what goes on in the garage area. I think, Ray, you get your star for the day. You did that. Bob, you were on top of the fan view. Well, I'm going to give you a different view from an owner's perspective. He's standing up. I'm here with Ray Abraham. He's on the hauler. We're about to see the second practice for Bud Shootout. And the cool part is you got 3 of your guys in this shootout.
Yeah, we're really proud of that. All three guys are in the shootout, and it's always a good way to start your week because you get a little bit of a head start on the chassis thing. Daytona's going to come down to handling again, so hopefully we can figure out some things.
Now, of course, you're a racers kind of guy. You're watching it from up here. This is the best view. Tell race fans why you come up here instead of staying out in the garage.
A couple of reasons. Off of 4, you can really see if your car is tight or good. You need to be good, stay on the bottom off of 4, not break momentum, because that's a really important place to win or lose the race here. Plus, they got this big giant, and all this new technology is a big giant screen here, so I can watch you guys covering us.
Now, I do want to cover this. The ARCA race is tomorrow. Now, Erin Crocker, of course, is running the ARCA race. She's standing on the pole for this race tomorrow. She was second in happy hour. She's running awesome. She's got a rocket of a car, and she's looking for sponsorship.
Yeah, we're trying to, if we could get the right deals together, we would run her in the full ARCA series, but coming here for the first time with, there's only 3 or 4 guys on that team. It's just a really small little team with Scott McDougal, his first time as a crew chief. To sit on the pole at Daytona, I'm really proud of him.
All right, well, I'll be watching for her tomorrow. She's going to give my brother Billy a run for his money, and that's all tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on Speed. So make sure you check out the ARCA race. And now we're going to check in with Bob Dillner.
Well, Wendy, pretty ironic. I was trying to give the fans a different view as well, so I too came on top of a transporter, joined now by Mike Nelson, who is crew chief for Ryan Newman. We chatted just a little while ago. How was the car, first of all, in that first practice session, Mike?
Well, we were a little tight the first session, so that's the biggest thing we worked on. This session is more like the race for us, so we're looking forward to getting out and making some laps.
We were chatting also about the fuel mileage strategy. 50 laps for that second segment, and you have basically an 18-gallon fuel cell. Can you go the whole way, and what are you going to be doing in this practice session to try to see?
Well, that'll be a good question that we might not answer till tomorrow, but I'm sure everyone's doing a fuel mileage check, seeing where they're at. It's a little new situation for us here, so we'll make some laps and see what we have.
I want to know what it's like. You came on at the end of last year, but what it's like to be here as a crew chief for a Major League Cup team, something I'm sure that is really special to you, especially with Ryan Newman.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure to work with Penske Racing and Ryan Newman, and I'm just an honor to be the crew chief of the Altel Dodge.
How about crew chief of the winning Daytona 500 team? How about that?
That wouldn't be so bad either.
Okay, JR, I want to just show you one other thing. Take a look at this, because this perspective right here, if you pan over to the right, take a look at this. Crew chiefs gets to stand up here, look at the speed charts, and watch their cars go around the racetrack. This is a beautiful place, Jimmy, and something that is very near and dear to your heart, because you won here before.
I love Daytona, and Bobby, you're so right. When you see this place under the lights, it's absolutely phenomenal. But these guys are worried about fuel mileage. I can't figure that out. You got to pit automatically. There's a rule. You have to pit for 2 tires in the Bud Shootout tomorrow night, the second segment. So, to me, I don't see what they're up to there, because it's automatically have to pit for 2 tires.
Well, we shall see when they go racing tomorrow night under the lights. Right now, let's send it back to Dave Despain.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the old hour here and the beginning of the on-track action. The NASCAR live show drawing to a close here, and up and coming will be that happy hour for the Bud Shootout cars. It brings to mind Denny Hamlin's amazing performance in that race last year, which we will be, I'm sure, commiserating about during the course of the broadcast tomorrow night. The rookie kid, a year and a half away from the local late model scene, coming off and winning his very first time he sat in a Cup car. So we're going to be joining the Fox Network guys for that happy hour broadcast, and let's see if they're alive and well up there. We got Mike Joy, Larry Mack, and DW. You guys ready for some race car action? Take it away.
Bright lights, big city, Daytona Beach, Florida, birthplace of speed. And right now, drivers like Jeff Gordon are getting ready to tackle the 2.5-mile tri-oval for the second time today in Bud Shootout practice round number 2. Speed welcomes you to Budweiser Shootout final practice. Welcome back to Daytona. Final round, hour and a half. second practice of the day. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you once again. And in the first hour of practice, Darrell, we saw a lot of side-by-side maneuvering. We didn't see a lot of passing.
No, but she's getting good to me now. I had an hour and a half of practice. I've had a little time to think about it. I've made a few changes to my car. Now, this is like race conditions here. About the time we're going to start this baby tomorrow night, things are going to pick up. You watch. There'll be a lot of side-by-side. Might even be a lot of bumping in this session.
Larry, when you come down here for this race, how much of it is you've got what you've got when you unload, and how much really can you do between sessions to make that car better?
Well, I go back to the first session. Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus with the 48 car. They were not happy with their race car at all. And right near the end of that session, they finally got that thing to turn. But the thing about tomorrow night, you've got to get it right now, because tomorrow night it's a short race. 70 laps with a break after 20. You may only get one opportunity to tweak on that thing during that race tomorrow night.
All right, let's get at it. Denny Hamlin won the first round of practice. Jimmy Johnson had the second fastest single lap, as David Gilliland in the M&M's Ford hauls them around Daytona with Ryan Newman in tow and Kenny Schrader.
Darrell, you had an interesting stat about the young man up there leading this pack, David Gilliland, in that 38 car.
He's the only guy in the race that's not been in a Bud Shootout before. He's the only really rookie in the race that for tomorrow night. So he's doing something he has never experienced before. Got a fast car set on the pole at Talladega. Yates's car is always good here at Daytona, so he might be the surprise winner this year.
Gilliland front of the pack, Toyota top of the chart. Brian Vickers fastest right now.
You know, you can get a fast lap, though. When you got a bunch of cars like this, if you just get back and get a good suck, get a good pull, you can really run a fast lap. It wouldn't surprise me to see that 5 and 8 cut a couple of really fast laps here.
If everybody gets lined up behind them and they are catching another pack, that's when that stopwatch really gains some time on it.
Tony Stewart trailing the pack on the outside lane as he comes up against his teammate there, Denny Hamlin. Dick Berggren.
Tony Stewart has got the car he drove to a third-place finish here last year in the shootout, Mike. He is a two-time winner in 7 tries in that event. They have been working on his car to try to improve its handling, as has just about everybody in the garage area. More so than I'm used to hearing. Everybody is fussing with the suspension and with fuel mileage. Stewart is going to try to get his car to the point that he can go all 50 laps in the second segment tomorrow without having to stop for fuel, and several others are on that same strategy plan.
New sheriff in town, Dale Earnhardt Jr., fastest lap of this session.
Yeah, and the 5 right there. They were back in a good position where they could get a really good run on this group of cars right here. That doesn't surprise me. It also doesn't surprise me that they're 4 wide there for a moment. Like I said, this is like for real now. This is like we're not playing anymore, boys. But it doesn't surprise me either that somebody thinks that they can run 50 laps here tomorrow night on a tank of fuel. That's 125 miles. We've done it in the qualifying races with fuel to spare.
Let's update the fans on what has changed there right there. For so many years, just like at all the other racetracks, we ran a 22-gallon fuel cell. Not a problem to go 50 laps on a tank of fuel. The last 2 years at the restrictor plate racetracks, Daytona and Talladega, we've run the 13.5-gallon cell. There was no way to run 50 laps. You could only run about 38 to 40. This year, at every racetrack, restrictor plates and everywhere else, even Fontana in a couple of weeks, all teams will run a fuel cell that is 17 3/4 gallons, and it's right there on the window of being able to go 50 laps. Darrell, you and I did the math during our break. You almost have to get about 7 miles to the gallon to be able to do it.
And you know the dead giveaway, you know why that they probably will try to do it? It's because everyone says, oh, you can't do that. So, you know, it's kind of a mind thing where you say, oh, you can't do that. In the back of your mind the whole time you're thinking, but I believe I can.
Right. Let's get down to the garage and join Chris Devoto.
Kevin Harvick just brought his Chevrolet in. And yeah, do not adjust your television. New colors for the 29. Shell and Pennzoil on board. Complaining about the front end. He's saying the car is just too tight. In that first practice, he was 5th quick. He said he was losing the nose in the corners. It wasn't really a concern. He just didn't like the steering box, so they changed that out. Meanwhile, his teammate, though, Jeff Burton, really having trouble with the front end. He said the front end was not working at all. Jeff Burton finished 14th quick. Of course, he's hoping this practice a little more truer to form as the conditions darker and cooler will be more like the shootout tomorrow night.
Thanks, Krista. Now, Darrell, changing the steering box, what will that do for the driver?
There's a number of things that you can do with the steering box. First of all, you could change the ratio. These boxes run anywhere from a 12-to-1 all the way up to a 20-to-1. You can change the valve in the steering box. You can make it steer real easy, or you can make it steer real stiff, real hard. So if the driver says it's steering too easy, they'll change to a different valve in the steering box. If he wants it to turn quicker, where he doesn't have to turn the wheel quite so much, the driver, but the wheels will turn more, they put a quicker steering box on it. It's a driver preference. That's all it is.
Defending champion of this race is Denny Hamlin. He won the first practice session. And Matt, he is 17th in this session after running 6 laps.
And Mike, 1 year ago, he shocked everyone in the racing world when he led 16 laps and won the Budweiser shootout, but he was surprised at the handling of his race car. Even though he was the fastest time-wise, the car had the speed in the first session, but it didn't have the handling that he was hoping for. They made 9 adjustments, some minor, a number of them major, trying to get this car in the handling area that he wants. Now, they said he may go out and run 3 or 4 or 5 laps, may go out and run a longer run if the car is where it needs to be. But right now, and remember, they've got conditions now, which they will have tomorrow night, but one wrench in the mix is that the ARCA Remax cars were out running a session right before this final session, so there is that Hoosier rubber on the track. That has thrown some teams for a loop.
Schrader up the outside and around David Gilliland. He gets right to him, but can he complete the pass? We haven't seen a lot of passing in these 2 practice sessions.
But remember, that 21 car down here last year was Schrader at the wheel. He led the first 20 laps to the break, and he looked mighty stout out there right now. Looks good.
Ken Schrader gets into the shootout because he is a past winner who is in the top 50 of the Nextel Cup standings in 2006. So sorry, Darrell, even though you're a past winner, you wouldn't be eligible this year.
I guess I'll have to run a few races this year to be eligible for next year, right?
You know, Darrell, what I'm seeing, I've been watching David Gilliland in that 38 car. Right there is where you've got to keep that race car. You've got to keep it right on that yellow line, right on the bottom. You're going to have to make them pass you on the outside. And right now, it looks like the outside line cannot move as fast as the bottom line.
I tell you, the thing that's giving these guys a fit, Larry, is the tire. The tires are harder. They just don't have the grip. The thing that's you're going to lose first is not the back. You're going to lose the front, and it's going to cause the back to snap around, but you're not going to have the front grip. Car won't turn. That's what these guys seem to be fighting.
And the more you get into a run, the more you burn fuel off and gain nose weight, the more that push is magnified, the front end sliding.
And you just can't afford, like some racetracks where you can start the cars really, really loose, anticipating that it's going to tighten up. You can't stand that here, running side by side the way we do.
If you notice right here on David Gilliland, all way around the racetrack, 100% throttle, no brake whatsoever around this 2.5-mile racetrack.
Well, that throttle thing is the key. If you can hold that thing to the floor, you'll drive off and leave everybody else. It'll make your car look like it's got more horsepower.
Because when you get that push off turn 2, the only way you can correct it is slow the speed of the car down, roll out of the throttle.
And what do we say? These cars are all about momentum. If you lift the throttle, you lose momentum.
We're going to gain a little momentum by getting a break out of the way. You're watching Bud Shootout Practice at Daytona. Speed coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Budweiser, official beer of NASCAR and proud sponsor of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the number 8 car. By Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. And by Toyota, moving forward. Casey Kane fastest in this practice right now. Kurt Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Busch, Scott Riggs are the fast 5, and I may have said this was a 90-minute practice. It was 90 minutes between practice sessions. Like the first session, this one is also 1 hour. You can bump and you can draft and you can bump draft.
And Larry, we were just talking about this. This is fine. Straight away, cars are going straight. Little shove. Look what it does to Tony Stewart's car. That last little shove shoots him right between Ryan Newman and Dale Jarrett, puts him right on up through there. Now, what you got to be careful of is you say, oh, Tony liked that. I'm going to do it again. But you got to be careful where you do it again. You just don't do it in the turns.
Yeah, well before the corner, he got off of Tony. He didn't bump draft him anymore.
What happens, the driver will say, the driver in front, like Tony Stewart, will put his hand up and say, come on, do that some more. Well, you kind of think maybe he wants me to do it some more right now. And what he really wants you to do is wait till we get straight and do it some more. Man.
Casey Kane.
That's called a slicing and dicing.
Kane is quickest in this practice. Dick Berggren.
And that's the result of the crew doing an awful lot of work between the first practice session, Mike, and this practice session. Mechanics underneath that car for nearly the full hour and a half. Changing, interestingly enough, the crush panels around the wheel wells. Kane said the car was just plain too loose. He couldn't run it wide open. Apparently, they've got it fixed now.
Doc, what they do is right in and behind the front tires, you can curve those crush panels, make them look like half moons, and that will create some downforce in the front of the car. Now, possibly he had straight panels back there, not creating a lot of downforce, and he went to the curved panels to create more front downforce. There's a lot of air rolling around those front tires that creates a lot of downforce inside the wheel well.
Yeah, you can actually change the configuration of those crush panels behind the front tires and also the crush panels that seal the cockpit area around the rear tires. There's a lot of downforce you can gain or lose back there.
And it's perfectly legal. That's up to the teams. That's just something that you play with in the wind tunnel and doesn't always correlate to the racetrack.
All right, David Gilliland's the only rookie in this race. He has run every lap of this practice out in front of the whole pack. If this was my first time in this race, would I want to spend a lot more time in traffic than out front?
No, sir. I want to be right where, because I don't want him to know what it's like back there. Right now, he doesn't have any idea. You just keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to enjoy the heck out of this race.
But what I like about his race car, he just completed 17 laps. He still has that car right around the bottom. And look here, let's watch him through the corner. Let's see if he's still able to hold that throttle wide open. And right now, it looks like it, because right there on turn 2, we talked about it earlier, that's where the car will start to slide the nose. You have to lift off the throttle. Looks like his car is still turning good.
And you saw how he opened the gap up between he and Ryan Newman right behind him.
Right.
Ryan maybe had to squeeze out a little bit. David did.
I want to follow up on Casey Kane in the 9 car. Just got the report. Dick Berggren told Pam Miller in the truck down there that the work they did was around the rear crush panels, which tends to make better sense to tighten the car up. Plants the rear of the race car.
Here's Casey Kane, who is fastest in this session. And here's Krista.
Well, 21 cars in the Bud Shootout, so we thought we'd tell you a little bit about car number 21. Ken Schrader back in the garage, making a few changes. They're lowering the sway bar, raising the track bar, changing right front spring. I asked Fatback McSwain, competition director here for the 21 Wood Brothers, I said, how's the car? He kind of just smiled and said, well, compared to first practice, better. Guys.
Boy, Schrader at 51 is the veteran of this group. And next Sunday's group. And all season's group, pretty much. Except for James Harvey Hilton, but that's another story for another day.
Yes.
We'll be right back. "99 days to the All-Star race, 99 days on the wall, and then it's 98. And it's the Nextel All-Star Challenge, and it's only on speed. And it's coming up in just 99 days.
Big weekend for Speed. It's not All-Star Challenge Day, it's All-Star Challenge Week, the entire week.
He was talking about Kenny Schrader and how long he's been around and how many Bud Shootouts he's run. You believe it, Mark Martin and Bill Elliott, they ran their first Bud Shootout in 1982. Brian Vickers and Kyle Busch wasn't even born yet.
You saw Jimmy Johnson just slide the tires coming in. I think what he's already learning is how fast he can get on pit road if he has to make a green flag stop.
What he just learned is he blew out the right front tire.
Well, he knows that was a little too much then.
Watch it. See
there it went right there.
Guys, get a right front tire.
More on Jimmy Johnson. Here's Matt.
And Mike Chad Canales just told the 48 guys to take a tire out to pit road. And Jimmy said he really didn't think he smoked it that much, but obviously he did. Now, Jimmy was saying after about the 10-lap mark of the run that the car was really good. The car worked well up top. He worked well out front. He dropped to the back, and that's when the car went to the tight side. But they did say that the car seemed to be pretty decent. They really couldn't make any idea as far as what changes to try to free the car up. After it went to the tight side, they said if you want to bring it in, bring it in. If you want to stay out, stay out. So he stayed out and ran a little more.
But once again, these guys are anticipating that they may have to make a green flag stop. Remember, they've not made pit stops in over 3 months, and you're trying to come off the racetrack at well over 180 miles per hour and get down to pit road speed at the right point, but not give anything up. So this is a little bit of a good practice for that.
You know, it's always the right front that locks up and slides. And what I used to do, I used to put a harder set of brake pads. Here, I used to use a little bit harder brake pad on the right front only, so I would not lock that tire up.
David Gilliland still out there, and this time towing Bill Elliott around. So Gilliland has run 24 laps in this session, most of anyone.
And Bill Elliott, you believe he's been in 21 Bud Shootouts. He's completed every lap of every Bud Shootout, 727 laps.
You all will come back and change that airbox back like it was.
And let's go down to Dick Berger in the garage.
And Jeff Burton, following up on that, Darrell, has only been in 2 prior Bud Shootouts because of this. Until this year, he had only won 2 poles, but he won 4 of them this year, so he's in the race. But maybe he wishes he wasn't. The car is just plain not good. They made wholesale changes between the 2 practice sessions. Burton said the car is a little bit better, but it's still got quite an understeer, quite a push to it. So they've got a lot of work to do. And Burton told me in the break, handling will be all important tomorrow night. That is what's going to decide the difference between winning and losing.
And Darrell, you talked about it earlier. I think that's just, you know, we always fight that here, but I think this is a product of that little harder right side tire. I talked about the bigger fuel cell. That's one reason Goodyear made the right side tire harder or tougher, knowing the teams were going to be able to run about 10 to 12 more laps on a set of tires with the bigger cell.
Brian Vickers, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Busch top the chart. Lonely Town, that's where David Gilliland is right now. He is still going.
I guarantee you, we've talked about this all day long. His crew chief, Todd Parrott, he just completed 28 laps. I believe Todd possibly will try to run this thing out of fuel, go to the fuel pumps to see exactly how much fuel the fuel cell will pick up.
And he's doing everybody a favor. I mean, instead of everybody having to do it, he's going to do it, and then they'll all be at the gas pump waiting to see how much fuel you put in it.
Well, how big a difference will it make him running by himself instead of in a pack like we will be tomorrow night?
Mileage-wise, it will make a difference.
Yeah.
How much fuel the fuel cell will pick up, it will not make a difference. They're just trying to see if when it runs out of fuel on the racetrack exactly what they can count on that fuel cell picking up.
Now, we've talked about this being a 17.5, 17.75 gallon cell. The reason we're so vague is NASCAR no longer measures the fuel cell by its capacity. The old fuel cell was a 22-gallon capacity cell, but they found that some fuel cells weren't quite at the same size as others. And so now, the size of the fuel cell, every dimension, length, width, and height, is what's mandated by the rule, not the gallon capacity.
Exactly, and let me say this, Mike, back to your question. If he can go out there and run 47 or 48 laps with a lot of these laps being by himself, we know in the draft his mileage is going to get a little bit better,
right,
and should be able to take him to be able to run the 50 laps.
Okay. Let's check with Kristen.
Well, if you want to put your money on perhaps a new first-time winner in the Bud Shootout, perhaps it should be on Elliott Sadler. He's 6th quickest in this practice right now, but he may be even better than that. He just got on his radio and talked to his team director, Josh Brown, and said, handling-wise, this thing is everything we need. Handling-wise, I am so happy with it. It's unbelievable. They're just going to do some experimentation, some things they might do in the break tomorrow night between the 20-lap and 50-lap segment. But he said handling-wise, which you guys talked about, how important it is at this track, it is perfect.
And Darrell, it almost sounds like that Dodge has nailed this new nose they've got on this Charger. You hear everybody fighting, car not turning, car pushing. They're happy with the handle of that race car. There's the new Dodge Charger nose right there.
Yeah, it's new. Now it looks like everybody else's. That makes it, you know, it's better because it's like everybody else's. Last year it was totally different, and they had a lot of problems with it. The thing that really intrigued me about Everhand's teams, when they were down here testing with telemetry in the cars, they had the computers and all in the cars, they were getting data and they were sending it not only here at the track with the engineers here at the track, they were sending it back to the shop. Back at the shop, they had a car on a 7-post on the shaker machine. If they found something that made that car better here at the track, they verified it back at the shop by running it on the shaker machine. Not only were they sending it back to the shop, but they're also sending it to Detroit, and they were analyzing it. So I'm telling you, Ray's got his arms around this package right now.
And David Gilliland keeps going and going and going.
Car ought to be called Wilma. Wilma car make it.
Speed coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. David Gilliland now finally has some company. He'll complete his 35th lap next time by. And we should remind you that David has never raced a Cup car at Daytona. The last practice session and this one are his first laps here. He has run Talladega, but these are his first laps at Daytona.
Now you want to see something. He's out here. He's coming down the little straightaway here, coming through the tri-oval. He's at the start-finish line now. Here comes this pack of cars back here. Kurt Busch leading them. He's at the line now. Wouldn't take them too long to chase him down, him sitting out there by himself.
No, they'll be running a good second half faster than he will. But you got to tip your hat to Todd Parrott, because Todd Parrott, he's learning not only for the Budweiser Shootout, he's learning for the big race next week. He's going to see how much fuel this car's picking up, what his mileage. But the big thing, he'll be able to look at the tire wear tonight on this long of a run.
So, Dick Berggren, how long are they going to leave him out there?
Hard to say how long they're going to leave him out there, but I'm going to tell you what, this garage is just absolutely electric with all this fuel mileage stuff. Steve Letarte, who is the crew chief on Jeff Gordon's number 24 car, told me before this session started that Gordon is going to try to go all the way, try to run all those 50 laps tomorrow night. So is Alan Gustafson's car with Kyle Busch as the driver. But everybody that's trying this strategy is very concerned about how many yellow flag laps we will have between gentlemen start your engines and the drop of the green flag. 2 laps, 3 laps, however many laps, however much fuel that eats up, that will play into whether anybody in fact can go the entire distance in the second segment tomorrow night.
Now, Darrell, you remember when we just could barely run 50 laps in the 125-mile qualifying races? I know when we were right there at it, we would not have our driver crank our car until the cars went to leave pit road. We would have him crank it when they'd say, gentlemen, start your engines.
Oh, yeah, I've waited right till they say roll off, crank the engine. I've gone out on the racetrack, given a little gas, and then turn the engine off and coast. Give it a little gas, turn the engine off and coast.
Right.
There's a lot of really, really little tricky things you can do.
Well, one year the Grand Marshal said, gentlemen, start your engines, and absolutely nothing happened. Matt.
Well, Mike, if you're going to do something spectacular at Daytona, you do it under the lights in practice, and that's exactly what you did, making your entry into pit road. But I have to ask you, when the team said, how good's the car, you said like butter. In Jimmy Johnson terminology, how good is that?
Now, the car is really strong. It's handling, driving around the bottom, and then I got up top and got a big push from the 8 car. And when the push ran out, the engine was still pulling hard, and I was able to clear the car on the inside. So, you know, everything I'm looking for, the car is doing it. It's got torque up off the corner, it's got top end, it doesn't run out, it's handling. So I'm very pleased with the car. I was trying to practice some pit in because it's been a while, and driving the Daytona prototype here in the Rolex 24 and some other road course testing I've done recently. I guess I'm used to a car that stops, and this thing does not stop, especially the restrictor plate package, the way these brakes work, it doesn't stop. And Chad made a remark. He goes, well, I guess those tires are junk. And I didn't realize I had the wheel locked up, and I look in the mirror, and there's smoke everywhere. So just got to get get familiar with this car and how it stops, which it doesn't stop.
And they just had a long debrief, Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson, over what to do to this race car to maybe go out and make another run and see if they can improve on what Jimmy says is already a car, and I quote, like butter.
Now, what's so critical about not doing what he did, blowing out that right front tire, is if the crew chief was going to give you a little shot of fuel and send you right back out, a little gas and go, Now you've blown out the right front tire. Now I got to take the time to change the tire.
Which very well could happen tomorrow night if you have to hit pit road about lap 46 or 47 of that last 50-lap segment. You don't want to spend time changing tires.
If everybody's laps matches car number.
Yeah, if everybody's calculations is right, he should run out at 45 laps, between 40 and 45 laps.
Okay.
Because most guys were telling me that, you know, I think we're 5 laps short. And that makes sense.
All right. It's an interesting race Saturday night. Since it began as the Busch Clash in 1979, they've changed the format several times, trying to spice up competition. The race will be run in 2 segments, 20 laps. Then everyone can work on their car for 10 minutes, do what you would normally do on an over-the-wall pit stop, and then 50 laps in the final segment. Still going.
And going.
40 laps complete. I'll bet he's still going when we come back.
He hopes he is.
Next Friday night on Speed, the roughest, toughest racing in NASCAR returns to Speed. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series hits the high banks. Last year brought us fireballs, flying trucks, and a victorious veteran who's also alliterative, Mark Martin. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series live on Speed next Friday night, 7:30 Eastern.
So now what do you do, Mr. Crew Chief? I didn't quite make it.
Yeah, if he indeed is out of fuel right here, that's only a little over 42 laps. You know, that's not even close, really. A lot of those laps, you know, were by himself, but still, that's a long way from 50.
It is, but Larry, I tell you, when you get out there and you got people around you and you can not have to hold it wide open every lap like he was having to do, you can stretch that a little further. I'm not sure you can get 8 more laps out of it, but I think most of the guys nailed it. They said 45 laps, and I don't know that the Yates cars always get the best fuel mileage.
And, of course, what this means in that last 50-lap segment after that 10-minute break, if these guys get an early caution, you better believe pit road will be very busy, if nothing else, to top those tanks off with fuel to try to make it to the end.
Well, my devious mind is at work here, and we do know that he tried to run it down and pick up all the fuel in the cell that it would pick up. But do we know he started with a full tank?
We don't have that answer.
Well, do we also know that they want to run it all the way out of fuel?
But I couldn't imagine that long of a run that Todd Perritt, the crew chief, would not have started him on fresh tires with a full load of fuel.
That would be the conventional wisdom. And we are told from the garage that they did start with a full tank. Nick Berger.
Speaking of wisdom, the fastest man in town is Casey Kane. So what do you think? Is this race tomorrow night going to be won by somebody that can pull a fuel strategy deal, or is it going to be the car that handles best, or what's going to take to win tomorrow night?
I think it'll be handling. I mean, there's going to be fuel, might be coming to issue, but I think there'll be some type of a caution. Everybody will get a little bit of fuel and some tires, and then it's going to be a shootout. And I think our Dodge dealers, UAW Dodge Charger, is pretty fast. These guys done a very nice job with the engine program, and there's been a lot of testing going on over the off-season that I haven't done, that just Evernham Motorsports has done to give us a shot at the 500 and the Bud Shootout.
Okay, if handling wins the race, how's the car handling?
It's handling pretty good. I still want the front to turn a little better, and the back's right on edge right now. So we're making a couple more adjustments here, and we're going to go make one more shot and see if we can't make some gains.
Wide open all the time, every lap?
I'm not yet, but I'm pretty close. So if we get there, we'll be all right.
All right, thanks, Casey.
David Gilliland got 6 miles per gallon on that run. He would need to get slightly better than 7 to go that 50-lap distance.
It's going to be hard to do.
And, you know, Darrell, what also hurts fuel mileage, I talked to a lot of crew chiefs in the garage here this morning. These guys are pulling lower and lower gears. You know, it seems like maybe a year or so ago they were pulling, you know, 310s, 315s, 318s. Now they're going lower, which is a higher number, 322s, 325s, 333s. A lower gear uses more fuel.
The other thing, too, Larry, those fuel cells are all brand new. I don't know what happens to them. I guess the fuel sloshing around in them, the weight of the fuel, they do grow a little.
Some do.
They're not supposed to, but they will.
Sometimes they grow a lot.
Oh, devious minds at work again.
Sees those black helicopters on the first day of practice.
clock keeps ticking toward the biggest day in stock car racing, the Daytona 500, live on Fox. 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
You know, the track opened for inspection today for the Daytona 500 cars. 61 cars trying to qualify for those 43 spots for the Daytona 500.
And very few hope-I-coulds among those cars. I mean, there are a lot of good, I think more fully funded, heavily sponsored teams are here for this Daytona 500 than perhaps for any other in the race's 48-year history.
Yeah, well, we've overflowed the garage area. We got cars, even our former champion, outside in the overflow lot. A few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, people were complaining about field fillers.
Right.
2 cars that didn't deserve to be in the race, and now look at us. So it's cyclical. It comes and it goes, and right now we're on a high.
And I think part of that is interest from new sponsors, and part of it is the interest from the new manufacturer, Toyota. But a lot of, I'm afraid there's going to be a lot of people Thursday afternoon, some very big sponsors and very big names that are going to be headed home disappointed.
Darryl, you talked about him in our earlier practice session, that 01, that Army car up on the high side there, Mark Martin. You know, he obviously has had a good race car down here for a number of years, a past winner of the Budweiser Shootout. But you've got to believe the way the Ginn racing cars, the way they've run here before with the Hendrick power, Mark has got some pretty extra bump in his step, you know, just I think because of the package that he has here.
Well, I think what Mark brings to the table, he brings a lot of experience and knowledge. Mark is a great chassis guy. Back in his ASA days and when he went over to Roush, Mark can get a car driving and handling like it's supposed to. I think that's the asset that he's going to bring to this whole operation is his knowledge about chassis and getting those cars to drive better. When they get them to drive like Mark wants to, the other guys are going to be better too.
Look at 2's running up bottom.
Brothers linked up in a draft there, and now
still 5-2.
looking to the inside.
The 20.
Tony Stewart comes up.
2's going to try to pass the 5. Now he's going to the inside.
Passing.
Got the 20 car with him. 2 back.
Where are we? Or did Kyle lift to let him go?
I think he's looking for he wants to get back here and get in some traffic, I think. He's been up front. Kyle's got a fast race car. He's run some fast. Whoa,
what was that?
Holy smoly. That's that kind of push loose scenario that we've been talking about. Except that was pushing real loose, super loose.
We probably need to see that again.
Well, Darryl, you know it's really bumpy up there where he's at as well, which hurts the situation.
Down on the bottom, kind of keep it pinched down tight, and maybe that thing just steps out. That's one of those that the crew chief says, what was that?
Kind of like we did.
Yeah. And of course, Junior would probably come back and say, I just got a little bit behind on the steering.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car, 3rd fastest in this practice session. He's run 26 laps. There's his crew chief, Tony Uri Jr. Been with him for a number of years in the Busch Series and now in Nextel Cup.
You never know about Junior. Larry, he might have been talking to Tony Jr. about something up in the grandstand. He's been known to ride around and...
Now, look, it happened to him again. Watch the 8.
Yeah, he did that. He was in control there.
Did he go up to get a little toe off of Scott Riggs and try to drop back down?
Get down, back down behind Tony Stewart in the 20.
I swear it looked like I don't know if he almost looked like he had a soft tire. Might just be my imagination. I didn't get a good look at it. Looked like his right front was soft to me.
I think he's just out there playing and having fun right now. Looks like what he's doing. Up against the wall. He's got Jeff Gordon now in the 24 car behind him.
Be interesting if anybody's monitoring their radio traffic, because those are the things that make the spotter go, whoa.
Well, you know, he's pretty much at times been the Pied Piper down here. Line up behind me, boys, and follow me, and they usually do.
And if you see right there, he pulled that car right down to the bottom of that racetrack, right against the yellow line down there in turn 1 and 2.
And the reason you want to be able to go high, go low, is because if you're running with someone, how many times we heard Dale Jr. or anybody say, tell Tony Stewart, I can't run the bottom. I got to run the top. Or tell whomever, Jeff Gordon, I've got to run the top. I can't run the bottom. So you've got to try to have a car that you can do both so you can get somebody to work with you.
And you've got to learn that tonight, that you can or you can't.
Casey Kane still quickest. Kurt Busch, Dale Jr., the top three. Yep. Speed coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Budweiser, official beer of NASCAR, proud sponsor of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the number 8 car. By Valvoline. Valvoline, 100 years under the hood. And by Toyota, moving forward. .62 degrees. It got into the mid-70s today. A nice, beautiful, sunny day. Chamber of Commerce weather.
This is something we will not see very often right here. Look at that. Hardly no wind whatsoever, but it's been that way for the last 2 or 3 days here, which can make a difference in the gear selection these guys make. If you're going up against a headwind or something.
I'll tell you what, we were looking at Dale Jr. there a little bit ago. You know how he was wobbling off turn 4. That might happen once, and you say, oh, it's just one of those one time. But this thing keeps stepping out like that right there every time off turn 4. Only thing I can think of is they don't want it to push. So they've got it where it's real loose and figure it's going to pick up a push. What are they saying, Dick?
Well, Junior said just before he pulled the car off the racetrack that he's driving with the steering wheel turned as far to the left as he can turn it. Car chief Tony Gibson told me that they put a setup underneath the car for this practice session that he just doesn't like and the car doesn't like. So this mechanic's just about ready to climb all over this thing and change it back to where it was.
Well, tell him we voted on it up here and we don't like it either.
I'll let him know.
The car did not look happy.
No, that's a very unhappy car.
But the good thing is I think he had a car in the first practice that he was a lot happier with. They can go back to that setup to some degree.
Krista?
Down here with Boris said, brought his car around to the gas pumps. And Boris, you were talking a little bit earlier about how when you're a part-time team, you see a lot of lows every now and then you see some highs. Comparing your season last year, you had a couple of great moments.
Well, it's more of the pressure of qualifying. You know, I mean, you go there and it's like you're on the bubble and it looks like you're going to go home and everyone's depressed. And it's like the movie My Dog Skip when the old dog dies and you're just crying and everyone's sad. And then a second later, you're in the show and it turns into Brokeback Mountain. You know, a bunch of grown guys patting each other on the butts and hugging and kissing each other, telling them how much they love each other. So, I mean, that was my Indy last year. So, you know, hopefully this week will go good and we can get in on Sunday on time and we'll have a nice smooth week.
We'll let you get back to the car. And I'm so glad Boris got out of the car to tell that story himself because I was afraid I was going to have to make a reference to Brokeback Mountain. I didn't quite know how to do that. Of course, he's talking about his pole at Daytona. That's how he got in the Bud Shootout. Excitement all around for this team. No, so I'm really glad he told that story.
But Krista, have you seen My Dog Skip?
No, the sad thing is I have not seen My Dog Skip, but I have seen Brokeback Mountain, so I don't know what that says about my movie selection.
Well, none of us up here have ever heard of My Dog Skip. We have seen Old Yeller.
Oh, I've seen My Dog Skip. It's a sad movie. Yeah, it's about a little girl that has a dog, and she goes off to school and leaves the dog behind, and I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry I brought it up.
I think something happened to the pickup truck, and
Matt
repossessed the trailer. And
here's Matt.
And I have seen My Dog Skip, and keeping in the wounded dog scenario here, they did have to make some fender adjustments. The left front for Denny Hamlin, he had a slight tire rub earlier. They fixed that. They changed the shock. They've seen just about everything in this final practice. Now, Curtis Mark and Miss Spotter told moments ago they've got less than 10 minutes trying to get back out. But he asked him, what did you learn out front? And Denny said, well, when I'm out front, the car is tight from the center off. In the middle, it's tight from the center off. But when I'm in the back, the car has gone to the free side. So they've made some aggressive changes on this 11 car, a significant change with the front sway bar, and they put on a different shock package in the front just to try to A and B things to see if this will be a drastic enough change for tomorrow night. And My Dog.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, have you seen My Dog Skip?
My Dog Skip was a very good movie.
Okay,
I didn't cry at the end like DW did on Old Yeller. Mike, just come by the coach.
Yeah, you loan me the DVD.
Nobody ever died of a broken heart.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
5 minutes left in this practice session. for the Budweiser Shootout cars. Tomorrow, Fox and Speed's coverage of Daytona Speed Week continues. Beginning at 10:30 a.m., 2 sessions of Nextel Cup practice here on Speed. And tomorrow night, the Budweiser Shootout on Fox. Then Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, find out who wins the front row for the Daytona 500. Then Wednesday, we have more Nextel Cup practice for you, along with Craftsman Truck Series practice, as Speed Week rolls on Speed and on Fox for the next 8 years.
Now, with just a few minutes to go in this practice, you see right back there Tony Stewart in the 20 car, Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car. Dick Bergman was telling us during the break that they changed about everything under the front end of that race car. You're pretty much locked into your rear springs and the rear shocks you have to race here based on the NASCAR rules. You can tune with front springs, front shocks, and the front anti-roll bar. They changed all of those with the exception of one of the front springs. A whole package change is what we call it.
Just think about Dale Jr. He was out there, he made a few laps, he didn't like the car, and in just a few minutes is how efficient a crew has to be. They turned that car around, made a bunch of changes, and got him back on the racetrack for these last few laps of practice, just so he'll know what he's got when he starts that race tomorrow night. Yeah, let's see if he wobbles. He got the wobble out of that baby.
How used are we to seeing the 20 and the 8 nose to tail here at Daytona and at Talladega?
Yeah, they work well together. They really like they like drafting with each other. They trust each other. That's huge. And particularly when they're 2 fast cars. It's bad news for everybody else.
Add the 11 Hamlin to that mix, and here's Scott Riggs tacking on the back of that draft.
Yeah. Darrell, I want you to help me with something right here. When they come off of turn 2, look at Dale Earnhardt Jr., the 8 car that's a Chevrolet, and let's watch Scott Riggs in the 10. It's a Dodge. Look at the difference in the nose to the racetrack. Look at the 10 car all the way down on the ground, and I noticed last time, look how high the 8 car's off the ground. That tells me there's quite a difference in the attitude they're running these cars, front springs, front shocks, and sway bar.
Yeah, there's a number of things that could cause that, Larry. One thing is tape. I don't know who's got the most tape on the nose. The more tape you put on the nose, as you well know, the more it's going to suck it down. But that's a great indicator that you've got a good balanced race car. But that nose being up here a little bit is usually not, it doesn't usually bother me like it does other places.
Because with the nose up, that means that rear spoiler, the blade in the back, is down a little bit, which helps the straightaway speed.
Yeah, but it's a great comparison between the two. And you see Scott Riggs, I think he may have just bumped the wall.
Tomorrow night, one of these drivers will be the first Nextel Cup driver in Daytona's victory lane for Speed Weeks 2007. Not counting the Rolex 24 winners.
The guy that,
a whole different game.
The guy that wins this race tomorrow night will make $3,000 a lap.
Not a bad payday for a 70-lap race of well over $200,000 to win.
Yeah, $215,000. Dale Jarrett's won the most money in the Bud Shootout. He's got 3 wins and $660,000 in the old shootout.
Happy Harvick done for the night, as we're just about at the end of this final practice for Budweiser Shootout cars. Bill Elliott and Sammy Johns. Casey Kane has won this second practice 2/100ths of a second faster than Kurt Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Busch, and Scott Riggs. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for Nextel Cup practice. Now it's on to NASCAR Live and Dave Despain.
The final minutes of practice, happy hour for tomorrow's Budweiser Shootout. The Cup cars circulating the racetrack here at Daytona International Speedway at the end of a long and interesting day of activity, but we are far from finished on the old Speed Channel. Once the engines fall silent, I guarantee you the announcers will still have a couple of hours worth of good stuff yet to come. half-hour version of NASCAR Live here to wrap up the practice activity. And then we'll be bringing you a special edition of Trackside. That will kick off a half hour from now. Denny Hamlin, the defending champion in the Bud Shootout, will be there, along with Kyle Edwards and our team of broadcast professionals. And then Michael Waltrip and company will wrap it up at 9 o'clock Eastern Time with another edition of Trading Paint, kicking off the 2007 season here at Daytona. JR, John Roberts, down there in the Nextel Fan Center, prove me right. Demonstrate that we still have a lot of the good things to tell people.
Oh man, we've barely scratched the surface here, Dave Despain. We are going to go on. You call it a marathon earlier. I think it's a little bit more like the Ironman triathlon of race broadcasting. And myself and my cohort, Jimmy Spencer, Mr. Excitement, we're just talking about a little bit of Daytona history. And there's something you can do. I refer to it as a triple crown. It's actually the quadruple crown. If a driver really dominated these speed weeks, he could come down here, win the Bud Shootout, win one of the dual qualifiers on Thursday, and also go on and win the Busch and the Daytona 500. Now, no one's ever done that before. No one's ever gotten, well, someone's gotten 3 of them before. Dale Earnhardt Jr., when he won the 500, he also won the Busch Series race, which was run the following Monday. But, Jimmy, there's a little bit of history. A guy you know very well came down here, won not the Shootout, but won a dual Busch race and the 500.
I think his name was B.A. Bobby Allison. But, you know, I was standing there, and so you fans, you guys are, you know, sitting home, maybe drinking a coffee if you're up in the snow belt, but these officials are still working over here to my left, and I'm just amazed. They said 4 cars left to get the sticker that will allow them to practice. But as you guys are watching this practice, you did not see the cars being pushed out, lined up, making qualifying attempts. Big difference. When you go tomorrow, what you're going to see is you're going to see the guys going out, setting for sometimes 20, 30 minutes in their car before they can get on the track to make that 1 or 2 laps of qualifying attempt. That's the difference between the Bud Shootout and then qualifying for the Daytona 500.
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult tech inspections of the year because it is the first. Well, let's talk about Bud Shootout practice. Show you some of the highlights of the fast guys tonight on the racetrack. And this nighttime practice, Jimmy Spencer, is the one that tells more tales about the shootout because the conditions are similar, and the fastest guy, a little over 189 miles per hour, Casey Kane.
And what these guys are doing, there's Casey and Denny and Newman, they're playing with the throttle. They're rolling off the gas. They're here's Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Burton, Denny Hamlin again, and Jr. And what they're doing is they're moving around the track a lot. What they're trying to figure out is, okay, who do I draft the best with? What's my car doing in this position? Something they don't want to know about tomorrow night cold turkey. So they're learning tonight as they were practicing, hey, what am I doing here? And then they come in and make adjustments and fine-tune that car because, hey, man, it is pretty important to win. Here's Brian Vickers, the Toyota, underneath Jeff Burton. Now, who knows if he lifted or whatever, but the thing is they have to try to figure out what's the best position they could be in to try to grab that check tomorrow night.
Because when it comes to racing out on the track at Daytona, it doesn't really matter if it's your teammate or if it's somebody else. The thing is to figure out who you draft with the best. And, you know, Jimmy, over the years, some strange guys have gotten together from different teams, different makes. But once you get out there, the teammate thing is off. You need to be out there racing with who makes you go the fastest.
Very true, John. And, you know, you're hearing this stuff like, you know, Ford not helping Chevy, Chevy not helping Toyota, or whatever you're going to see. That's not going to happen because the driver is worried about himself. He has to get into this race. And Michael Waltrip's one of the best drafters. Michael Waltrip has to get in this race. I believe Michael will draft in that Toyota to a qualifying position if he doesn't make it on speed. And that's going to be the key. But, yeah, he'd love to have a Toyota help him. But believe me, Michael's going to say, hey, I know it's a Ford. I know it's a Chevy. But I want to make the Daytona 500. He also won this race.
How much stock can we put in who runs well in the shootout as opposed to who's going to run well in the 500? I mean, it's a different car. It's a different type of race, different setup. But sometimes guys who have a good Saturday have a good following Sunday.
You do. It's sort of like, you know, I was watching 24 Hours here on Speed, 24-hour Rolex race. And you know, a good buddy of mine, Scott Pruitt, said, we knew we were in good shape when we unloaded. When we practiced, everything went smooth. There's a lot to be said about that. Same thing here. When you go through inspection, everything's really good. When you start making practice laps, then tomorrow night, those 21 cars already have an advantage. But I think you'll see the teams that run well tomorrow night will be the teams to contend with all weekend, especially in Thursday's races and on into the 500.
Remember that old adage, the guy comes up to a guy on New York City Street and says, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And he says, practice, practice, practice. Well, how do you get to Victory Lane at Daytona? Practice, practice, practice. Well, folks, stick around. We still got much more coming from Daytona. Dale Jr., Kyle Busch talking over what they're going to do. We're going to take you all the way up to trackside, so stick with us here. The crowd is already building out there at the trackside stage. We're on the inside of the Daytona International Speedway, and we'll be back with much more of NASCAR Live in just a moment.
NASCAR Live is presented by Toyota, moving forward. Brought to you in part by Kawasaki, let the good times roll. And by Subway, Tony Stewart's favorite pit stop. Subway restaurants. Subway, race hard, eat fresh.
Thursday on Speed, tune in for the fastest reality show on television today, the debut of the Speed Road Tour Challenge. 4 NASCAR fans get a chance of a lifetime. They'll compete from Daytona to Dover. The winner gets a Toyota Tundra and a spot on the Speed Road crew. It's called the Speed Road Tour Challenge. The premiere is Thursday night. I hope you'll check it out on the old Speed channel. All right, things are quiet here at the racetrack. The engines have fallen silent. There is still a good bit of activity in the garage area or so, I'm told. Let's go to a NASCAR Hot Pass by DirecTV report. We have Bob Dillner standing by. Bob?
A big meeting of the minds actually right here. We got Greg Biffle, but you see Jack Roush back there, Pat Trice, and a lot of the boys of the 16 bunch. Bud Shootout Practice is done, over with. You got the race tomorrow night. How are you going to be in that race?
Well, right now we're off just a little bit. Our car has a lot of speed on the straightaway. You know, we just pushed Jeff Gordon almost by Kurt Busch there. Came up from 4th. So the car's got a lot of speed, but when I get to the corner, it won't turn. So we're having a problem with it handling around the corner. I can't run the bottom, wants to slide the nose up the hill. So we're talking about lowering the front of the car down. We're talking about how much clearance we have so we can lower it down and get a little better attitude with the front of the car. We put some shocks on it there at the end. It liked it, so we know the direction we need to go. But you know, the thing's pretty fast out front, so we'll just have to wait and see.
You talk about some wholesale changes right there, but was that the difference, fast out front, in the first practice when you were 4th quick and this one when you were 18th quick?
Yeah, it was. You know, just didn't get in the right draft on this one. But, you know, I pulled out in front of everybody last time and got a shove out front. And this time I wanted to be back in traffic. You know, we start 5th, so I want to see what it's going to be like starting 5th on the bottom. So I tried to position myself there to see what the car drove like. And it is tight, too tight right there. So, but if we get it out front, I think it might be hard to beat.
And Greg Biffle, Pat Trice, and that's a match made in heaven for this year. Wendy Venturini here in the garage area. You have more.
Just winding up. Mark Martin climbing out of the car. How happy are you? I see your top 10 on the chart.
Yeah, I really like my car, and we're off to a good start here. So I'm hoping to give our soldiers something to cheer about tomorrow night. We're pretty fired up about the race.
Now, did you make a lot of longer runs, like a lot of people testing the fuel mileage for this Bud Shootout?
Yeah, we made a 22-lap run there at the end, and, you know, I really like our U.S. Army Chevys, so I'm ready to go. We quit a little bit early. The car was good, and I feel good about it. It's as good a car as I've ever had here.
Now, you're a pro when it comes to the Bud Shootout. You've raced this plenty of times. How do you approach it any differently than some of these rookies that may be in the field?
Well, you know, Ryan, my crew chief, Ryan Pemberton's got to figure something out. He's got to, or I do one. We've got to position ourselves in the front. If we can do that, I don't think there's anybody here that can pass us. You know, we've got a really fast car, especially when we get in front. So we're starting 10th, and it's a long race, and we'll try to figure out how to get ourselves in front later on in the race. And if we do that, the race will be on.
All right, thanks to you, Mark, for your time. He's going to head out. The day's winding up, and of course, Mark Martin's on with Ginn Racing this year.
Mark Martin sounded pretty confident in his Chevrolet. Mark Martin Chevrolet, why does that sound strange? Biffle, on the other hand, with a lot of changes planned between now and tomorrow night. Bear in mind, those are changes which will not get a racetrack test until the green flag falls on the Bud Shootout. Such is the nature of stock car racing. An interesting couple of different perspectives from former teammates there. As we prepare for the big dash for cash coming up tomorrow night on Fox. But wow, so much activity to come here between now and then. We invite you to stay tuned for a whole lot more. NASCAR Live coming your way from Daytona International Speedway, live on Speed Channel. Welcome back. Trackside is coming up here on the Speed Channel as we continue our 7.5 hours of live coverage from Daytona International Speedway. I hope you've been with us from the get-go at 2 o'clock. In case you tuned in late, don't make that mistake tomorrow. We start at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time, and we expect you to be here. During the day, Ray Dunlop has broken the all-time record for oddball features reported in a single broadcast from Daytona International Speedway. Ray's back up again. How about it, Ray? Another oddball or something real this time?
Well, the Nextel Cup Series garage will close at 8 o'clock, but we'll get right underway again tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And hey.
Calm down.
I know. Well, see, we got a lot going on here, and I know there's a big debriefing going on over here. So
everybody that's got one of those things on the other end of this camera has got a volume control. They can can't hear you, they can turn it up. But the bad thing is when you're in the garage area and you're like 3 feet away from us over here, we can't turn you down.
And some of us are deaf too, so that's a problem. But tell me about that Home Depot Chevrolet today out there in Bud Shootout Practice. You happy with your race car?
Now I figured out he was yelling at us, so I'd come over and do an interview with him. No, it was all right. I mean, we tried a bunch of stuff, so we just. First day getting back, so it feels good to be back here.
We look at those speed charts, Tony, and it seems like that means absolutely nothing. I guess it's just how satisfied you are behind the wheel.
Yeah, the speed chart boils down to who was back behind a pack and got a run, and he got a whole lap of the draft to pull them up. So whoever did that the best got fast time on the chart, but it really doesn't tell you anything. I mean, what tells you the most is when you can get out in front of the pack and see what the stopwatch says and see what lap times, who's running fastest leading the pack. That tells you who's pretty much the best cars. So we're just kind of debating here. We were debating real nice and peacefully and quietly until we're here at Daytona, and then all of a sudden we're over here like, what the heck's going on here?
I'll try to quiet down a little bit, but we're very excited to be back.
That fuzzy thing closer to your mouth, maybe they can hear you better then.
Well, we're very excited to be back. Glad to see you. Tony Stewart's got a fast race car. Might not be at the top of the charts, but he's going to be good in the shootout.
Usually if Smoke's in that kind of a mood, it means that whatever he says, car's pretty good. I suspect he's reasonably happy with the piece that he'll be fielding tomorrow night when the Bud Shootout takes the green flag. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll come back and continue our live coverage here from Daytona as we head for trackside and ultimately for the 49th running of the Daytona 500. We will wrap up this big clam bake a week from Sunday on Big Fox Sports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You are not ready for the Daytona 500 until you have watched the biggest pre-race show on television. We're talking NASCAR Race Day built by the Home Depot. I want you to check out JR, Jimmy, Kenny, and Wendy helping to fire your engine before the 500. NASCAR Race Day built by the Home Depot. That is a week from Sunday, and it's live. And, of course, it is only on the Speed Channel. And speaking of Wendy Venturini, she is standing by down there in the garage area. I believe it is time, Wendy, for the Subway Fresh Buzz of the Day report. Let's see what you got.
Well, tonight is the Subway Fresh Buzz of the night, I want to call it. And what's going on in the garage? Well, let me give you a little heads up. They have the cattle call when they all come in bright and early, 5:30, 6 a.m. All the teams come into the track at the same time. Well, how about when they leave? It's like a cattle call going home. The NASCAR officials just came over the speakers and said, guys, you have 4 minutes. It's time to go home. These guys have covered up the cars. The garage doors are being closed. All the teams are gathering their bags right now. The garage is being shut down. It's an eerie silence starts to fall over it, and it starts all again tomorrow morning, and we'll be here to cover it. Dave?
Another hour and a half to go. How about it, JR? You're on for the long haul. Am I correct about that? You're going to be here right till the end of Trading Paint tonight.
Hey, absolutely, man. We can talk all night about this stuff. But, Jimmy Spencer made a bold prediction earlier on a NASCAR Live. You looked me square in the eye and said Tony Stewart is going to win this Bud Shootout.
Yeah, Tony's practiced really pretty good. When he's, like Dave Despain said, when Tony does what he's done there, he's cocky. And that's good. But I am impressed with Mark Martin. I don't know when Mark Martin has had that much confidence. I'm glad to see that, and it makes me, that car's always ran well on the plate race. Now I think with the experience of Mark Martin, he has won on the plate races before. Man, that'd be pretty neat.
Now, Jimmy, that 01 car is a Ginn racing car, but it has a Hendrick motor under the hood. And if you look at the past history of plate races, Hendrick Motorsports said, we're going to get these things right, and they did. Evidence, the wins of Jeff Gordon at Talladega, Brian Vickers at Talladega, and Jimmy Johnson here last time we ran the 500.
Yeah, JR, we look back 2 or 3 years ago, the dominance was DEI. Now it's turned to Hendricks. And it does seem that they have not lost anything. And there's a couple teams use Hendricks Power. MB2, which is Ginn Racing now, is one of those teams. And the other team is Booty Barker. And Booty thinks...
Haas Racing.
Yes, Haas Racing. Booty, I was talking to Booty, and he said, Jimmy, I feel pretty good about my chances. I am so excited about Sunday qualifying. I can't wait to watch how close these cars that have to make the race are going to be. I think it's going to be...
Now, you can't put a lot of stock in the speed charts from testing. People tell us that when they get out there and draft, cars can get a tug somewhere on the racetrack, and the speeds can be deceiving. But one thing that is not deceiving when you look at speed charts here at Daytona is how close everybody is, Jimmy, on the charts. Sometimes there is 3/100ths of a second that separate the guys who go home and the guys who run in this race. When we have so many people trying for this race, 3/100ths of a second may send somebody home.
Well, you know, I've heard so many drivers, JR, over the years say, nothing I can do but hold it wide open. Bull crap. I don't want to hear that stuff. There is a lot you can do as a race car driver to gain a little bit of speed out of your car. And guys like Dale Jarrett, Michael Waltrip, who's won here, had success, they realize that little bobble of the wheel, a guy like A.J. Allmendinger, or a guy that has not got Juan Pablo, but he's in the race. But those guys don't even realize that the angles, the Bill Elliott, he knows the grooves of the racetrack. There's a lot more to this than just saying, hey, I held it wide open, guys, and that's all I got. No, there's a lot to this.
All right, folks, well, again, we just barely scratched the surface here. It's all over, but the racing for the Bud Shootout practice is over. What we have coming up next on Speed is trackside. The crowd is building out there. Got some great guests tonight for Steve Burns and the boys. It's Carl Edwards and Denny Hamlin, the Bud Shootout defending champion, is going to come by to talk with the guys on trackside.
The Fresh Buzz of the Day has been brought to you by Subway. NASCAR Live is presented by Toyota, moving forward. Brought to you in part by Kawasaki, let the good times roll. And by Subway, Tony Stewart's favorite pit stop. Subway restaurants. Subway, race hard, eat fresh.
Well, the racetrack may be quiet right now, but it's not quiet outside of the trackside set. They will be out there in just a moment in full force to have Carl Edwards and Denny Hamlin come by and talk about this Bud Shootout. Of course, Denny, it was a big story last year, Jimmy, when Denny won that thing because it introduced us to this young man from Chesterfield, Virginia, who really took the series by storm last year. Not only did he come out and win the shootout against the best of the best, but he won 2 races at one of the most difficult racetracks there is.
Yeah, you know. The thing is, I believe this guy's got a shot at winning even the Brickyard last year, and he had a fuel pump problem.
He did.
You know, Jared, you think about our sport, and what's interesting about our sport is this cat is racing in Virginia on a Saturday night track. And how many guys is home that races against him saying, I kicked him in the butt. I beat this guy. But something about Denny Hamlin, is somebody like the Joe Gibbs Racing.
They saw him.
It's paid off. Denny Hamlin's the true deal, and you know, I don't know if he's going to have the year he expects to have. We saw Carl, we see a lot of these guys the second year just go through that sort of era. Hopefully, Denny doesn't have that same problem.
The sophomore jinx happens to so many different guys, but then again, there's guys that it hasn't happened to, and there's really no reason to think that Denny would have one.
No, I don't think so. You know, I think there was a pretty big awakening last year to Tony missing this chase. You know, and I'm excited about the chase. You know, we've added 2 cars. I think we need to. With the quality of cars that we have in our sport today, we don't have a 15 or 20 car field anymore. We have 43 cars, but my point is we don't have 15 cars that are really legit. We have 43 legit teams could win the Nextel Cup Championship. To me, that's the best, the strongest our sport's ever been.
And just think about it, just 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about the ugly word field filler. Actually,
yes.
That's 2 ugly words.
We were worried about
field fillers.
we were
worried about that. Now we got 61 teams down here trying to make it into the biggest show in all of American auto sports.
Well, but when you realize, I hate to interrupt, but
you know,
when Toyota came in, they're looking at John Roberts Racing, and I'm going to become his partner. We're going to have a Honda team.
You heard it here first from Jay. Don't bet on that, but Dave Dispenser wants to get a Honda team and go racing. What do you think?
I'll take a piece of that, but I guarantee you it'll be a minority position, a minority ownership position. I'm on Jimmy's side. I think they'll be coming someday. It's the nature of the world and the future and the sport and the fact that NASCAR is more and more. You know, they say they want to make this sport look like America. Well, there are a lot of Toyotas running around in America. The point of all this being that tomorrow night will be historic for this point. It will be the competition debut of the Camry in NASCAR racing. There will be 2 of them out there, and we'll be covering it for you live on Fox. Of course, we'll have an entire run-up starting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and certainly hope you'll be here for that. Action throughout the day. The ARCA race is live on Speed Channel. That's coming up tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. The intensity that starts today just continues to build and build and build all the way down to that climactic checkered flag that falls on the Daytona 500. It's time for Trackside Steve Burns.